now I'm low energy. I am doing better. I streamed for like 9 hours last night, fell asleep, woke up, been streaming for like the past 6 hours. It's been a time. It has been a time. Really? Marshall Ghetto, thank you for gifting a sub to Ally in HD. We back, y'all. Might not be the right time. Might not be the right one. But there's something about us, gotta say. Marshall Ghetto, who did you see at a comedy show? Any big names? Nice, Marshall Ghetto. You like the singing? I do love singing songs. Who broke the site? Might just be a White Forest thing. They might just need to update a bit, you know? All right, we back. We back. Here, you know what? To celebrate, here's Undertale Spider Dance. Let's go. Not gonna lie, that knife sound's a banger. Oh yeah, this guy's amazing. I love him so much. This is Instrument Maniac on YouTube. Highly recommend their channel. It's really, really good. It's just fun. It's just fun stuff. Also, now that I've got the stream up, let's get the YouTube comment section up as well. All right. There we go. Peaceful Warrior, hello. Hello, Erica. Hello, Kyryu over in YouTube chat. Boom. There we go. Finally a stream I won't fall asleep on. Oh, Malachi. You're going to fall asleep on this one. We're going to be streaming all night. Also, how's Lucid Fox doing these days? I haven't heard people talk about him much. Hope he's doing all right. All right. Yeah, sorry about that, chat. One of the assets, the background, kind of like little anime space background I have behind the Riverboat Jack logo, is on an external hard drive, and for some reason that external hard drive wasn't showing up on my computer, so I was like trying to refresh the devices on the computer, and that caused all of my software to crash, but my computer was still going. I could still see all of you after I got Chrome back up and running, but yeah, so sorry about that. But we got the assets back, and also, I think I might play Dredge for a bit while we watch the rest of these hearings. Which, by the way, I'd recommend Dredge. It's really, really fun, and it's basically like if you took all of the sailing from Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and then just gave it an Eldritch spin. It's pretty fun. And it's a game that I can play while listening to people talk, which is something I can't do with Baldur's Gate. So, there we go.
Mr. Chairman, there's already a motion on the floor. There's already a motion on the floor.
I'd like a reporter. 12 o'clock, we would give them a bathroom break.
There's already a motion on the floor.
There's a motion and it's mine.
Okay.
Point.
All right, would the clerk please report?
We'll finish Baldur's Gate. It's fine.
Roll.
Probably tomorrow,
To be
though.
clear, this is on the motion to table Mr. Mfume's motion for unanimous consent to call Rudy Giuliani as a witness before the Oversight Committee. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Jordan. Mr. Jordan votes aye. Mr. Turner. Mr. Gosar.
See ya, Marshall Ghetto. Hope you have a good time at work.
Ms. Fox. Ms. Fox votes aye. Mr. Grothman. Mr. Grothman votes aye. Mr. Palmer. Mr. Palmer votes aye. Mr. Higgins. Mr. Higgins votes aye. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Sessions votes aye. Mr. Biggs. Mr. Biggs votes aye. Miss Mace.
Mr. Chairman, what are we voting on?
This is a motion by Mr. Groffman to table the motion by Mr. Mifune to subpoena Rudy Giuliani.
Got it. Doesn't seem to have a lot to do with this. I'll vote aye.
Miss Mace votes aye. Mr. LaTurner. Mr. LaTurner votes aye. Mr. Fallon. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong votes yes. Mr. Perry. Mr. Timmons. Mr. Burchett. Miss Green. Miss McLean. Miss McLean votes aye. Miss Boebert. Mr. Fry. Mr. Fry votes aye. Miss Luna. Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards votes aye. Mr. Langworthy. Mr. Burleson. Mr. Burleson votes aye. Mr. Raskin.
No.
Mr. Raskin votes no. Miss Norton.
No.
Miss Norton votes no. Mr. Lynch.
No.
Mr. Lynch votes no. Mr. Connolly. Mr. Krishnamurthy. Mr. Khanna. Mr. Mfume.
Mfume votes no.
Mr. Mfume votes no. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez votes nay. Ms. Porter.
No.
Ms. Porter votes no. Ms. Bush. Mr. Gomez. Mr. Gomez votes no. Ms. Brown. Ms. Stansbury. Ms. Stansbury votes no. Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia votes no. Mr. Frost. Mr. Frost votes no. Ms. Lee. Ms. Lee votes no. Mr. Kassar. Mr. Kassar votes no. Ms. Crockett.
No.
Ms. Crockett votes no. Mr. Goldman. Mr. Moskowitz. Mr. Moskowitz votes no. Ms. Tlaib. Ms. Tlaib votes no. Mr. Chairman.
Chairman votes aye. How is Mr. Fallon?
Welcome back,
from
Gamer G.
Texas recorded?
Yeah, we back,
Mr.
Sophie.
Chairman votes aye. Mr. Fallon is not yet recorded.
Aye.
Mr. Fallon votes aye.
How is Mr. Langworthy from New York recorded?
Mr. Langworthy is not recorded. Mr. Langworthy votes aye.
How is Mr. Timmons from South Carolina recorded?
Mr. Timmons is not yet recorded. Mr. Timmons votes aye.
How is Mr. Gosar from Arizona recorded?
Mr. Gosar is not recorded. Mr. Gosar votes aye. Mr. Connolly is not yet recorded. Mr. Connolly votes no. Mr. Krishnamurthy is not yet recorded. Mr. Krishnamurthy votes no.
How is Mr. Armstrong recorded?
Mr. Armstrong is voted aye.
Mr. Chairman, how am I recorded?
Ms. Mace is recorded as voting aye.
How is Mr. Donalds from Florida recorded?
Mr. Donalds is not yet recorded. Mr. Donalds votes yes.
Madam Clerk, how am I
Any other-
recorded?
Okay.
Have I been recorded? Madam Clerk, it's Mr. Raskin.
Mr. Raskin, you are recorded as voting no. Mr. Gomez, you're recorded as voting no.
How am I recorded? Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, how am I recorded?
Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is recorded as voting no. Ms. Brown is not yet recorded.
Okay.
Ms. Brown votes no.
All right. Will the clerk please tally the votes?
I'm confused about the point of order where they're asking like whether or not, like how they were recorded as voting.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 20, the nays are 18.
Seems weird.
The motion to table passes. Mr. Bafume, you're recognized for your final 3.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I reclaim my time and I ask the question, where in the world is Rudy Giuliani? That's how we got here, ladies and gentlemen. And this committee is afraid to bring him before us and put him on the record. Shame. And the question was raised, what
He's
does this
hanging
have
out
to do
with that
with it?
hussy,
It has
Carmen
everything to
Sandiego.
do with it. Professor Gearhart, in your testimony, you said in every impeachment inquiry, beforehand, the House has identified some credible evidence of wrongdoing committed by a targeted president. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Professor Gearhart, are impeachment inquiries typically utilized as a frontline tool to go fishing or for the first time go seeking evidence?
No, sir.
Professor Gearhart, would you say that House Republicans have made an unprecedented overreach of congressional power?
It strikes me that it is. Yes.
And Mr. Gearhart, would you say it's fair to assume that the extreme MAGA Republicans in particular have misused, if not abused, committee's resources and the taxpayer dollars in this prolonged investigation that has gone on for almost a year, subpoenaing documents, having hearings, providing boxes of evidence, and no wrongdoing?
Sir, I appreciate the question. I'm not sure who the MAGA Republicans are.
I can point them out to you.
Mr.
Now,
Chairman,
here's
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that gentleman please point out the Republicans he's referring to. He said he could.
I'm reclaiming my time. Ladies and gentlemen, this clock is showing what's happening to our country while we debate over and over and over again, not any wrongdoing by President Biden, but trying to link what his son may or may not have done to him. People are going to be hurt when this time runs out. This is not the Wizard of Oz when all of a sudden she turns over the hourglass while the Wicked Witch is standing there. These are children, these are women, these are military officers and soldiers and civilians, these are law enforcement officers, these are senior citizens looking for paychecks for Social Security. Why in the hell are we playing this game? And why don't we be honest? If it were so important, it could wait. This is what is important: protecting this government and protecting the people who pay taxes here. But we want to play games with all of this. So where is Rudy Giuliani right now? I'd like to know. And I'd like to know why we can't bring him before this committee like we've brought these witnesses and everybody else. I yield back my time to the ranking member.
Well, I want to thank the distinguished gentleman from Baltimore for his passionate and lucid comments here. And I appreciate the fact that you introduced a motion to subpoena Giuliani before I'd introduced a motion to subpoena Giuliani and Lev Parnas. Now, Lev Parnas wrote us a long letter saying that all of this is based on a fraud, a tissue of fraud. He went all over the world with Rudy Giuliani looking to find
Is
dirt.
he alleging the China money was a fraud?
Are you asking me to
Romanian
yield?
money?
Are you asking me to yield? I'm happy to yield for a second. What is your question, Mr. Chairman?
What fraud are you?
Well, I've introduced it in the record in case you haven't read it yet. The letter that Lev Parnas wrote to you and to me. In it, he called upon you to call off this wild goose chase.
Because of China money that the Bidens have received?
No, because all of this is based on the Burisma conspiracy.
The China money's based on the Burisma.
Well, I've seen a lot of China money.
Mr.
that went to the
Mafume's
Trump
time's
family. That's
expired.
what you're referring to.
Someone can yield. Now it's Dr. Fox from North Carolina for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is not a game. This is very serious business. And I think at the end, it will be proven to the American people that this is serious business. And we need to get on with it. We need to have the other side to stop playing games. Ms. O'Connor, in a column published in the Wall Street Journal, you stated that the typical timidity of IRS criminal tax lawyers in recommending prosecution is, quote, common knowledge in the tax enforcement community, end quote. Can you explain where this timidity comes from?
I don't know the source of it. Thank you for the question. But it is common knowledge in the tax enforcement community. The tax division is required to authorize any criminal tax charges that are going to be brought. In order to inform itself, the special agent report is provided to the tax division. Before it gets to the tax division, IRS criminal tax attorneys review it. They are because I'm sorry, having trouble answering this, but
let me give you some more guidance.
Okay.
So
I
before
actually can.
bringing charges, IRS criminal lawyers, as you're alluding to, provide advisory views in a special agent report. Is that correct?
Right, and they are advisory only. And the IRS, as any prosecutor is very determined to have a very high conviction rate. So they want to be very, very careful that if they bring a case, they will win it.
All right. So can you describe a typical special agent report and the special agent report specific to Hunter Biden's case?
Certainly. The whistleblowers have testified that nearly 1,000 pages were provided in the special agent report to the tax division. That special agent report consisted not only of a discussion of what they had discovered,
I'm so old.
but
Hey,
also
we all are.
every bit of evidence
No
that they
need to
found
fret.
that supported each element of each crime for each year for which they were recommending charges.
Okay, let me follow up again, please. More than a year after DOJ's tax division received this report, the division created a 99-page memorandum supporting the recommended charges. Is that correct?
I might be wrong about how long it took the tax division. I've seen other information suggesting it was a much shorter period of time.
But they did do that.
I understand that the tax division did produce a 99-page memo authorizing all the charges the special agents had recommended.
Thank you. So, Ms. O'Connor, you said DOJ's tax division recommended 6 felonies and 5 misdemeanors. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Hunter Biden was only initially charged with 2 counts of willful failure to pay federal income taxes as part of the plea deal. Is that correct?
Right, for just 2 years.
And these are misdemeanors.
Right.
Okay. But the maximum penalty for these charges is a fine of $25,000 as well as up to 1 year in federal prison. Is that correct?
Or both.
Or both. Yet Hunter Biden owed more than $100,000 in both 2017 and 2018. Correct?
That's what the criminal information alleged. I think that's a ballpark figure.
Okay. Based on the answers you just provided, it's extremely difficult to believe that an individual who is not the son of the sitting U.S. president would be treated this way. We're told the Department of Justice treats all citizens equally under the law. But based on the evidence this committee has presented, that is not what happened in Delaware. Based on your experience, would you agree that that's not what happened in Delaware?
Exactly, and it was particularly galling because just in the next state, in New Jersey, a mechanic was being sentenced to 2 years for having
Hey, Nova
not
99X,
paid
how you
like
doing?
$100,000 in taxes.
I appreciate
So,
it. How you doing?
In this case, there was not equal justice under the law being
30 is the new
proposed.
20?
Absolutely
It was
True. I'm biased 'cause I'm old.
Unequal justice. That is not what this country stands for. We want everybody to be
I'm just
treated
baby.
the same
We all
under
just
the
baby.
law, and my colleagues should feel
Even
the
if you're
same
elderly,
way.
if
Thank
you're
you,
in this
Mr.
chat,
Chairman. I
you are
yield
baby.
back.
Good lady yields back. Before I recognize Mr. Ocasio-Cortez, I asked unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from Lev Parnas, who Mr. Raskins continues to refer to. It's actually a press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. It's Lev Parnas sentenced to 20 months in prison for campaign finance, wire fraud, and false statement offenses.
Yeah, he worked with
Without
Rudy
objection,
Giuliani.
so ordered. Chair now recognizes Ms. Ocasio-Cortez for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, it has been repeated, and I would also like to repeat that the allegations being presented by the majority are extremely serious, and the prospect of impeachment is also a gravely serious matter, which has been echoed by our witnesses today. And any serious impeachment investigation or inquiry relies on firsthand sworn testimony of witnesses to high crimes or misdemeanors. Today, the Republican majority has called in 3 witnesses to advance their case. Mr. Turley, I have a simple question for you. In your testimony today, are you presenting any firsthand witness account of crimes committed by the President of the United States?
No, I'm not.
No, you are not. Ms. O'Connor, you are the second Republican witness here today. Have you, in your testimony, presented any firsthand witness account of crimes committed by the President of the United States?
I have not.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Dubinsky, as the third and final Republican witness in this hearing, have you, in your testimony, presented any firsthand witness account of crimes committed by the President of the United States?
I have not.
And Professor Gerhardt, given that you are the minority witness, I assume the same, correct?
I'm not a fact witness, correct.
Thank you. And to clarify, 2 individuals presented today who do have firsthand accounts surrounding the progeny of these allegations are being blocked from testifying by the Republican majority. And I want to explain why this is important. Members of Congress, all of us in this hearing, are not under oath, as we are presently covered by the speech and debate clause. Isn't that correct, Professor Gerhardt?
That is correct.
And the speech and debate clause covers all statements by a member of Congress, whether they are factual or not. There are only 4 people in this room that are presently under oath in their testimony. And those are the 4 witnesses here today. Is that correct, Professor Gerhardt?
That is correct.
And so the direct testimony of the 4 individual witnesses here today are the bona fide words that this committee must use in order to proceed or substantiate an investigation. And I want to emphasize why that's important. Earlier today, one of our colleagues, a gentleman from Florida, presented up on this screen something that appeared to be a screenshot of a text message containing or insinuating an explosive allegation. That screenshot of what appeared to be a text message was a fabricated image.
Oh, damn.
It was a fabricated image. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was the staff of the committee, but it was not the actual direct screenshot from that phone. And in fact, I would like to submit to the committee the actual full context from the Ziegler Affidavit number 1, Exhibit 402, of the full text of that exchange. Do I have permission from the chair? Importantly, what was brought out from that fabricated image excluded critical context that changed the underlying meaning and allegation that was presented up on that screen by this committee and by members of this committee. Now, they are well within their right to do that because they are covered by the speech and debate clause. This was not submitted by a material or fact witness under oath. That was not submitted by a material or fact witness under oath. The impeachment inquiry, any impeachment inquiry, regardless of
Get
party,
the
is an
ass.
extremely serious matter. Professor Gerhardt, in the impeachment inquiry into President Clinton, were there key fact witnesses that were presented during those proceedings?
They were not in the House.
In the Senate, were there any?
There were.
There were in the Senate. Now, in the impeachment, in the impeachment investigations with respect to President Trump, were there key material fact witnesses in the House?
Yes, ma'am.
There were. Are there any key material fact witnesses here today?
No, ma'am.
None. And so we are wasting our time. When we talk about a threshold of an
Curious.
impeachment inquiry, was there a House floor vote that had a majority of members of Congress that opened an impeachment inquiry into President Clinton?
There was.
There was. Was there a full House floor vote opening an impeachment inquiry into President Trump?
In 2019.
Is there one here for this one?
Not for this one.
There is not one here for this one.
Curious.
This is an embarrassment. An embarrassment to the time and people of this country. And I would ask that the chair and I would ask that this committee elevate to the promise of our duties here and comport ourselves with the consistency and practice that is required of our seats and our duty and our oath to our responsibilities here. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Goffin for 5 minutes from Wisconsin.
Okay, I'm concerned about the seriousness of these allegations. And what bothers me a little is that I'm beginning to think Americans are beginning to think this behavior by the Biden family is normal. I'm kind of afraid that they're going to say, well, President Biden's a politician. They're going to look at the news with regard to Senator Menendez the last couple weeks, and they're just going to say this is how it works. I don't think it's the way it works. I think this is this corruption that appears to be, we have all sorts of smoke, maybe not fire, but all sorts of smoke, is almost an historic low for our country. And it deserves a strong response from this body. Look at Senator Menendez's latest indictment. There's no tolerance for putting yourself before your constituents, unless it seems your last name is Biden.
Oh,
I
snap.
applaud my Democrat colleagues who've asked Senator Menendez to resign. We know how that ends.
I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. We're just chilling.
Risk.
We just bing chilling.
But here we're talking about the presidency. If the response is, well, Hunter Biden was an elected politician, I have to know just what was Hunter Biden selling. We can't become numb to these facts. The allegations are extraordinary. In fact, I'm not aware of these type of allegations where we have a sitting president accused of bribery, accused of taking payments, whether it be directly or through his family. And these are not empty allegations. We continue to have evidence. Just look at what's come in just the past couple of days. Is President Biden compromised? It's particularly relevant because of the interaction between our country and Ukraine, interaction between our country and China. Doesn't look good, and the facts demand we continue to investigate. Mr. Turley, I want you to really discuss how historic this really is. What do you think is what do you think is the most concerning piece of evidence that you heard of today?
I think the most concerning, obviously, you have to start with the bribery allegation that was the subject of the FD 1023. Now, I say in the testimony that you have to only take that so far because you have a lot of information about a secondhand account. But when you put it into the context of this labyrinth of accounts and companies used to transfer money, and you have the statements of Hunter Biden, that's what makes this a credible inquiry. And the question is, did the president know? Did he encourage this type of corruption? And the key here, once again, which is what I stressed in the testimony, is you have to begin with a recognition that what Hunter Biden and his associates were doing was corrupt. That's what influence peddling is. It's a form of corruption
Hey, Killer
that our
Cereal.
country
We are all, baby.
globally has combated. Now, the only question is for an inquiry is whether that body of corruption, which it is, also encompass the actions or the knowledge of the President of the United States. The only way you will be able to get that information is to follow this evidence. And what I suggest is you do so without any prejudice, you do so without any assumptions. In fact, I hope that the President will be able to show that there is no such nexus. But you won't get those answers until you ask these questions.
So we're really obligated to have this inquiry.
I believe it's your duty to determine if the President is involved in what is a known form of corruption. And that's what I believe has already been described. I believe many people have accepted that this was influence peddling in its rawest form.
Okay, could you elaborate for us the impact bribery of a public official can have on the execution of their duties? And how about if it was the president? You explain why the American public ought to care about this.
Well, you know, Alexander Hamilton talked about impeachment in Federalist 65 as a violation of the public trust. And that's really what this ultimately goes to. I'm hoping that there's not much disagreement that public corruption falls within an impeachable offense, because if it does not, then it makes a mockery of what the framers were talking about. You know, during the Clinton impeachment, Michael and I testified, and there was a lot of, I think, good faith discussion between us and the other experts as to the executive function theory and what constitutes an impeachable offense. I would hope that it would be agreed that if a nexus was established with the president, that he participated in the corruption of influence peddling, that it would be a potential impeachable offense, or it would be the basis of impeachment.
We have millions of dollars flowing to the Biden family. That's been proven overwhelmingly. Are you aware of any precedent in this country where there's been any case of bribery and corruption of a public official or of a president of this magnitude? I mean, is there any historical precedent in this country where on
Gentlemen's time's expired.
Hey, Avalon
Please
and
answer
Babylon,
the
where you
question.
been?
Certainly,
Hope you're
this
doing all right.
As the assumption, as the ranking member, has contested the degree to which the all of this money went to the Biden family members. That has to be, as the ranking member said, it has to be established. But no, in terms of the figures, I've been a critic of influence peddling by both Republicans and Democrats for 3 decades. I've been writing about this a long time. Influence peddling is the favorite form of corruption in Washington, D.C., and this city is awash with it. But have I seen anything of this size and complexity? No. Just as an observer, no. But we still need to know the scope of this and whether all of these financial transfers link the president in any regard, and I'm not going to assume that it does.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous,
Chair now recognizes Mr.
unanimous consent motion just to introduce an October 2020 article in Politico where Mykola Zlochevsky, who was the source of the FD 1023 that Mr. Turley just referenced, stated that neither he nor anyone else from Burisma ever had any contact with Vice President Biden or people working for him during Hunter Biden's engagement.
Without objection to order, Chair now recognizes Ms. Brown from Ohio for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While we sit here just 2 days away from a complete government shutdown, House Republicans want to distract the American public from their funding failure with a baseless impeachment inquiry lacking facts and foundation. This preventable shutdown threatens the livelihood of millions of federal workers, small business owners, seniors, and veterans, all of whom live in the districts of every member on this committee. In my home state of Ohio, nearly 60,000 federal workers will either be furloughed or forced to work without pay. I cannot overstate the impact this Republican shutdown will have on mothers and babies receiving WIC. In Ohio, there are 180,000 women, children, and
Had an
infants
incredibly great
whose
stream last night,
benefits will
thanks
be
to the
at
generous
risk.
folks of this community.
And in case that statistic isn't sinking in, let me just paint a picture
chilling.
for you. A new mother in Cleveland is trying to buy infant formula for her baby at the grocery store next week, only to discover that she has no WIC benefits to access. She cannot pay. If Speaker McCarthy and our Republican colleagues continue to value their egos
Just playing some dredge.
over the well-being of American families, stories like this will become a terrifying reality for millions. Yet, House Republicans continue to prioritize political warfare over people's welfare. The Speaker seems committed to promoting political games and protecting people's benefits over protecting people's benefits. Americans and our economy are being held hostage to the demands of the most extreme members of his party. It is painfully clear that Speaker McCarthy has once again handed control of the People's House to MAGA extremists. Rather than work with Democrats to get us out of the mess they created, Republicans are tripping over themselves trying to distract and deflect the American people with this shameful show. The Department of Justice and the FBI under former President Trump spent
Get their ass.
5 long years looking into these Republican conspiracy theories and debunked them repeatedly. So now, in a vain attempt to deflect from the chaos and confusion they are causing, House Republicans
yeah,
want to
absolutely,
give
they
them
don't
up
give a
yet
they don't care at
again.
all
So,
if
Professor
every
Gerhardt,
government
what
worker
would you
gets
say is the
slapped down.
primary
you
flaw
know?
in the House Republicans' claims about
Hey, boiled
President
peanuts.
Biden?
Why go there
I
when I
suppose
can be
could
here?
say a lot, but the problem
Indeed,
is that
prodigal
the dots are
ghost.
not connected. The name that's been repeated most often in this hearing is Hunter Biden, not President Biden.
Oh, I've been so
the point
sleepy
of
today
an
too.
impeachment inquiry is not about a
Tecma
president's
TV, how
son.
you doing?
It has to be about the president.
I'm
himself.
sorry, I've been playing
And
my
I don't
game
think
instead of
those
paying attention to
dots have been
chat.
connected. There've been lots of assumptions, lots of accusations, but not
Dredge is very
evidence.
good though, in my defense.
Thank you. These falsehoods about President Biden didn't change the will of the people in November 2020, yet my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are at it again, holding another hearing on baseless allegations, looking for facts that just don't exist. Instead of fulfilling our duty to govern, my colleagues threaten the government shutdown, dangerous for most and disastrous for our most vulnerable communities. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will yield my time to Ranking Member.
And I would urge you to yield to Mr. Goldman.
I will yield to Mr. Goldman.
Thank you very much. I thank my colleague. Ms. O'Connor, I believe you testified before that the 99-page DOJ tax memo gave a full authorization for the charges. Is that your testimony?
That is what the whistleblowers reported.
Actually, the whistleblowers reported that it was a discretion finding. And since you worked in the DOJ tax division, I'm sure you understand that there is full authorization, there is discretion, and there is declination. And when they give a discretion determination, that is because there are serious holes and flaws, and they leave it to the discretion of the U.S. Attorney whether or not they want to charge it. Isn't that correct?
No, not at all. Discretion is not based on holes and flaws. It's based on the ability of that particular district to prosecute that case. And in fact, that 99-page memo is referred to several times in the testimony.
Excuse me.
And
What do you mean?
only
the
in one
ability?
time did it mention discretion. All the other times it did not mention
This lady
discretion at all.
sucks.
And
So you're
that's-
disputing that it's
Gentleman's
Boo.
time. Gentleman's
Boo.
time is
Disputing that it's
expired.
at
The chair
discretion.
now recognizes Mr. Palmer from Alabama for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very disturbed about what I've heard here today. There's a saying among country lawyers that if you have the facts, you pound the facts.
I'm just a
If you
simple
don't have
country
the facts,
lawyer.
You pound the table. When you can't pound the table, I guess some of my Democratic colleagues choose to pound the witnesses. That was inexcusable. What just happened in this committee, attacking the witnesses personally instead of addressing the merits of the evidence being presented, indicates to me that my Democratic colleagues know the evidence is becoming increasingly conclusive. It reminds me of a line from a movie, A Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. The evidence will either convict or acquit in any criminal proceeding or civil proceeding. If there's no wrongdoing, the evidence or the lack of evidence will support that conclusion. The problem of the suspicion of wrongdoing is compounded by the withholding of evidence, the misrepresentation of the evidence in hand, and the obstruction of an investigation but not denying access to information that would be or could be evidence. At this point, there's a growing public perception, and it's reflected in the polls, Mr. Chairman, that President Biden, his son Hunter, other family members, and business associates were engaged in some form of criminal activity.
Hey,
It
Resonate,
is
how
the
you doing?
Responsibility of this committee to pursue the truth and report it to the American people. I'm not sure that's what's happening on the other side with my colleagues. It is vitally important that our efforts be conducted openly, without prejudice, with no other agenda other than arriving at the truth, regardless of our politics. It is vitally important. As Professor Turley has pointed out, you don't undertake an impeachment inquiry lightly. This has profound implications for the future of this country and our ability to govern ourselves. We have seen repeatedly obstruction efforts to deny this committee access to information that's material to this investigation. Now, I want to ask Professor Turley a question. In your view, could the promise of foreign access to any government official, whether it's the vice president or anybody else, that only materially benefited a family member, could that be influence peddling?
Yes, and as I point out in the testimony, courts have found that various benefits to family members can be attributed as a benefit to the principal. That has included everything from throwing a golf contest in the favor of a son of a politician to paying for gifts. In fact, I was lead counsel in the last Porteous trial, in the last impeachment trial for a judge, and that was the trial in the U.S. Senate. My client, Judge Porteous, was accused, among other things, of benefits going to his family, and so there's certainly precedent.
Yeah, they found Joe
in impeachment cases
involved in some nepotism, maybe, arguably.
If Vice President Biden used his office to
But they don't want
influence
that to be a
foreign
crime.
policy for the financial benefit of his son, even though Vice President Biden may never have received a dime, but it resulted in millions of dollars going to his son or his brother or other family members or business associates, and used his office to influence either domestic or foreign policy for their benefit, could that be a violation of the public trust?
Absolutely. In fact, it's perhaps the most quintessential violation of the public trust, because
Nepotism.
You're not acting in the
Don't look at
public's
that Trump
interest.
guy.
It's a form of public corruption that this government, this country, has declared as corrupt in other countries around the world. Sir, I don't want to jump on your time because I know you all have important things to do, but I would like to respond to the attack that you mentioned.
You may do so.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to explain what that attack dealt with, if nothing else, for members of the committee than for my 3 children here, who may be a little surprised by what they just heard. As they, I think, know, I've spent my life challenging what is called morals legislation. What the Democratic member attacked me for are laws that dictate to others how they should live their lives. Some of those laws have been used against gay and lesbian couples. They've been used against minorities. The individual that the member described, I condemned. I represented the sister wives in the case challenging that law
Oh my God.
on the basis of individual rights.
He's actually tried to
ruled in
defend
our
how
favor
he
and struck down that law the
how
first time
he
that
defended
type
a
of law had
pedophile
ever
in
been
court.
struck down. The 10th Circuit later dismissed on technical grounds. But I just want to end with one other thing, and that is, it's not going to make a difference. You know, this has become a pattern of witnesses, whistleblowers, FBI agents, journalists being attacked in Congress. It won't make any difference. It won't change the constitutional standard. It won't negate any evidence that you have. But at some point, you've got to say enough. You know, that we have to have something, the public has to have something in Congress to look to have faith. And I have to tell you, it's not that I think that absurd attack meant any difference to my children or to the people that are watching. It makes a difference to our process. Witnesses should not have to...
Mr. Chairman, I hate to interrupt Professor Turley, but could our witness get equal time then? Because we're over a minute over.
Has
Chairman,
your
I think
witness...
gentleman's time has expired. He responded to the false allegations by your members, and I apologize for how you all been treated. I apologize to the American people watching this hearing for the parliamentary stunts that the other side has pulled. I think people in America care about public corruption. The title of this hearing is an impeachment inquiry. And I think that Mr. Turley's done a good job explaining the basis for why we need to take impeachment inquiry and move forward. We have led this investigation, and now we need the impeachment inquiry status as we move forward to get the information that we have been obstructed by this administration and by this family. And that's what the purpose of this hearing is. Don't create another false narrative. With that, the chair recognizes Mr. Gomez from California.
Mr. Chairman, well, what obstruction were you referring to there?
Miss Stansberry from New Mexico. Mr. Gomez
What a
was
petty
saying
bitch.
something, but Ms. Stansberry, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to say thank you to Mr. Donald Trump for calling this hearing today, as it demonstrates the House GOP and Donald Trump's continued attacks on our institutions and on our democracy, and the House GOP's complete inability to govern in a serious manner. As they're holding this hearing, as we see just 2 days before a potential devastating government shutdown, and the fact that most Republican members on this committee didn't even bother to show up for the hearing this morning. Their own star witness said right here in this committee this morning that he doesn't even believe that there's enough evidence to meet the standards needed for impeachment. And in doing this, our colleagues across the aisle are making a mockery of this institution and of our Constitution, peddling in conspiracy theories, peddling the conspiracy theories that Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump themselves tried to get the American people to believe, and which Donald Trump's DOJ debunked. It's outrageous. So let's be clear about what this hearing actually is. It's an effort to undermine our democracy, to diminish Donald Trump's own 2 impeachments, his first impeachment for trying to illegally bribe a foreign government to help him with his campaign, and the second for a deadly insurrection in the halls of this Capitol after he asked his followers to tear through the halls of Congress, which they did with zip ties, looking to execute the former vice president. And we know that Donald Trump has called for this impeachment inquiry because we have the direct evidence from his own social. You can see it right here. He says, impeach the bum. And we also know that he's been directly coordinating with members of this committee, as reported by the New York Times. Right here, a member of this committee has been briefing Donald Trump on this inquiry. We also know that if Donald Trump doesn't get his way, he wants his loyalists to shut down the government. How do we know that? Because he posted it right here on his social media. And his loyalists in this committee who are doing his bidding for him
Hey,
today
Benedetto.
retweeted it.
Simon Pierre, you're
fact,
a
it
member on the
actually
YouTube.
says
Hell
right
yeah.
here that the reason why they want to defund the government and impeach is because this is the last chance to defund these political prosecutions against me. So folks, this is not a serious inquiry. This is not a serious hearing. In fact, the witnesses here don't even believe there's enough evidence to impeach. Their own members don't even believe there's enough evidence to impeach. In fact, they refuse to hold a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives because they didn't have enough Republican members who would vote for it. That's why we're here today. It's outrageous. So what is this hearing actually about? It's a campaign strategy. It's a misuse of official resources.
Correct.
It is this committee and
Wastes
loyalists of
everyone's
Donald Trump
time
doing his
and
bidding
money.
to bolster his chances of winning back the White House and securing their majority in the next election. And in the process, to diminish the name of impeachment, which is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution, which we take an oath to uphold, and to make Donald Trump's crimes, including his 2 impeachments and his 91 criminal indictment counts, look like they're not serious crimes. When you think about it, it's chilling. It's truly chilling. It's another attack on our democracy and our institutions. It's another attack on fair and free elections and the use of this committee to try to carry it out. So I just want to say, I think it's obvious who the grand puppet master is here. He tweeted about it on his own social, and we see the long arm, but little hands, of Mr. Donald Trump, whose fingerprints
get his
are
ass.
all over this hearing and this sham impeachment. But we know that the American people are smart, that they're not going to be fooled by what's happening here today, and especially as they shut the government down in 2 days with catastrophic impacts for our communities. And with that, I yield back.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Higgins from Louisiana for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Turley, Professor, we're going to be moving quickly here. Let us retract from the absurdities of 21st century Twitter. Let's go back to 1787, shall we? Article 2, Section 4, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. High crimes and misdemeanors is not and never has been limited to indictable criminality. Mr. Turley, Professor, please tell us briefly, sir, what was the actual meaning in 1787 of high crimes and misdemeanors?
Well, this has been a matter of obviously robust debate for many decades. What we do know is that there were various terms that were offered and were rejected, the most famous being maladministration, and James Madison was uncomfortable with that. But they were also uncomfortable with limiting it to like treason and bribery.
Exactly. It was never designed to be limited by writ of statute. Was it, Professor? Would Madison argue that, quote-unquote, betrayal of trust to foreign powers is an impeachable offense?
There are references to that type of betrayal of trust, but also if you take a look at past impeachments, they have gone to the violation of public trust, including the use of office to perpetuate false accounts or to obstruct this body.
Agreed. So impeachment is a mechanism of our congressional authority. It's not a criminal proceeding, is it, Professor?
It's not. What I've said previously is that I happen to believe you should start with the criminal code and look at things that would be crimes for others, because those resonate the most in terms.
And those criminal code violations would be revealed through the investigative effort of the congressional endeavor to inquire into impeachable offenses like this hearing. Would you agree?
That's right. This is the
moving
start.
quickly. There's one of the gentlemen said there's no credibility to this evidence. Let me say, as an investigator, there's perhaps no category of evidence that's more credible than bank records. And bank records is what we're working with. The House Oversight Committee, Judiciary Committee, Ways and Means Committee are investigating highly suspicious money transactions from foreign powers through shell companies to Biden family members. There's nothing more credible in an investigative effort, good sir, than bank records. I'm going to read from an email from Assistant United States Attorney Wolf, released by the House Committee on Ways and Means yesterday, identified as Exhibit 202 of the IRS whistleblower investigation. This email shows Ms. Wolf prohibiting the investigation team from looking into political figure one. Let me clarify that during that investigation, political figure one was the pseudonym agreed upon by the investigative team, the FBI, the DOJ, an IRS investigator. Political figure one is not a pseudonym created by Republicans or Democrats. Political figure one is President Biden, is Joe Biden. Leslie Wolf, as a priority, someone needs to redraft Attachment B. There should be nothing about political figure one in here. This is a response to an email delivered by Joshua Wilson, FBI agent, that said, please see the attached draft for Blue Star search warrant. Blue Star Strategies is a longtime Democrat lobbying firm that Hunter Biden used to put pressure on U.S. government officials to end the investigation and protect Burisma. The Department of Justice was investigating Blue Star for these activities and allowed to retroactively register as a foreign agent. Today, no one has been held accountable at Blue Star. That happened during 2020, just months before your presidential election, America. You should be very concerned about this. Mr. Turley, based upon the constitutional parameters of the House of Representatives, do you agree that our Oversight Committee, Judiciary Committee, and Ways and Means Committee should be judiciously investigating reasonable suspicion of impeachable actions by President Joe Biden.
I do. I think it is your duty to get answers to these questions and to see if the president was involved in what I think is a confirmed corrupt influence peddling effort.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired. I yield.
Chair now recognize Mr. Garcia from California for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to just begin by recapping for the American people what we've seen so far today. My Democratic colleagues have done a great job of showing that there's absolutely zero evidence linking President Joe Biden to any wrongdoing. Zero, none. This hearing is a complete waste of time 2 days before a MAGA government shutdown. And we also know that Hunter Biden never held any sort of public office. And there is no evidence that he ever influenced any kind of policy in the White House. There's no evidence that he and his father's finances were ever linked. And we've spoken to many witnesses to prove that. And in fact, none of the witnesses here actually have any direct evidence that there's any sort of wrongdoing, and that was repeated here by these witnesses. So instead,
Oh, Trans Girl Jade,
we're
you
back
voted
to
for this
following
guy?
on MAGA
Awesome.
conspiracy theories that Rudy Giuliani parroted over and over again. This farce is all about House Republicans trying to re-elect their beloved leader, Donald Trump. And what I want to know is why we're not actually investigating real family corruption. They want to attack President Biden's family, who actually never worked in the White House, which is incredibly hypocritical. Yet we have not yet talked about these guys that actually worked in the White House. And in fact, I want to talk about Jared Kushner, who's right over here. We know that Jared Kushner, who's Donald Trump's son-in-law, was given enormous power in the White House.
I do kind of love that
When
Democrats
Jared
just
joined the
hold
White
up
House, he was so
gigantic
unfit
pictures.
and unqualified, and with so many conflicts of interest, he couldn't even get a security clearance. His father-in-law, Donald Trump, had to intervene, overriding national security officials. We also know that just months after Jared left the White House, the Saudi royal family gave him $2 billion, with a B, into the Kushner hedge fund. And right now, Jared is pocketing an additional $25 million a year in fees. This is a man who was put at the head of Middle East policy in the White House. We know he personally intervened to give the Saudis a $110 billion arms deal that was opposed by folks all across the government. He supported the Saudis with their brutal war in Yemen, even after they murdered Jamal Khashoggi, a journalist, of course, who was an American resident. The Saudi crown prince bragged to other heads of state that Kushner, and I quote, was in his pocket. Even Trump's first Secretary of State complained that this is inappropriate. Now, Jared delivered for the Saudis over and over again, and he was rewarded. Even advisors to the crown prince advised against the $2 billion hedge fund
It's
investment.
true. I brought
but he
this
went
up
forward
earlier.
Anyways.
Good
So
job,
we know that Jared
Democrats.
Kushner, a senior White House aide and Donald Trump's son-in-law, was doing favors for a foreign government. Now, this is actually an enormous family scandal that this committee should be investigating. And I think Chris Christie put it well when he said that the grift from this family, the Trump crime family, in my opinion, is breathtaking. You also need to take my word for it. But this is actually what our committee chairman actually said about the Kushners. I'm just quoting our chairman. I have been vocal that I think what Kushner did crossed the line of ethics. Now, Mr. Chairman, I completely agree that the Kushners crossed the line of ethics, and I want to know what we're going to do about it and when that hearing is actually going to be here in front of us. See, if we're not too busy, maybe next week during the Republican MAGA shutdown, we can actually have a hearing with Jared Kushner, which is clearly in a very corrupt arms deal here, a deal around his investment firm. And the chairman can also be involved in that since he also thinks there's problems. Now, we do know today that we're not here because of any wrongdoing of President Biden, but because this is all part of Donald Trump's campaign. And his most extreme allies, including some members of this committee, are now retaliating. In fact, some members have been trying to impeach the president since day one. Now, this is a tweet here. I'm going to read it. It says, 2 years ago, I introduced articles to impeach Joe Biden on his first full day in office. We will impeach Biden, bolded with an exclamation point. And you see the actual resolution here. So we have the receipts to prove it. There really is no reason why. They don't care why they want to impeach the president, but they've been trying to do it now for years. Here you have, of course, a member of this oversight committee posting about introducing articles of impeachment on President Biden's very first day in office. And now the Speaker of the House is empowering these people in a desperate attempt to keep his job. Ultimately, the person pulling the strings here is Donald Trump. a dangerous man facing federal and state indictments who's out for revenge. And he's been doing
Ferrix,
this
thank you for the
his whole
follow.
career.
I
And I want to
appreciate
show
it.
you a second tweet again.
Guys,
by a
we're only
member of this
5 follows away on Twitch from hitting 9,200.
They're
Finally.
trying to expunge Donald Trump's
Let's
impeachment,
go.
as you can see here, which is also unconstitutional. I'm going to read this tweet. Expunge the wrongful Trump impeachments. Impeach criminal Biden. These are political stunts to appeal to an extremist base, and they seize control of this conference. If we don't act, they'll threaten our democracy again. This impeachment is a farce with no evidence, and with that, I yield back.
Mr. Chairman?
Chair recognizes.
Mr. Chairman, I would just
Mr.
add to the
Jordan.
gentleman's remarks that Jared Kushner was a key player in the historic
Is
Abraham
this a point of
Accord.
order?
Oh, excuse me.
It's a point of order.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Sessions from Texas for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Gerhardt, you had been asked a question earlier that I heard a quick reply to, and the question was about the timing of a government shutdown and an impeachment. You quickly responded, never. Do you want to revise or extend that remark about the timing of a government shutdown and an impeachment occurring at about the same time? And you said never.
I understand the question, and if you're talking about 2019,
I am.
there was not a shutdown.
There was not. There's not now.
I understand, but
There's not now. So the
Look, we're 2 days
people on
away
this
and doing this
side
instead,
are
but there's not a
simply taking
shutdown.
advantage of your
Gotcha,
answer.
liberal.
In fact, the indictment, the impeachment of Donald Trump was December 18th, 2019.
You lying cuck.
And then the president signed the funding of the government December 21st, 2019, 3 days later. So the question that you were asked, perhaps you responded to correctly, never. But in fact, there is a nexus that suggests that people on this side of the dais are taking it the wrong way. Second, Mr. Chairman, I also find that some of our members are talking about baseless accusations of a government shutdown. All you have to do is go to Google, Ohio, to apply it for WIC, which was the supposition brought up, can be gathered in all 88 Ohio counties. It is run by the state of Ohio, not the federal government. I think that we need to be careful when we make accusations here. Thank you very much. Ms. O'Connor, you have a history of understanding tax implications and inside the Department of Justice. These are serious matters, and when they
Would you
deal...
yield to the gentleman?
I will
Gentlewoman
not.
from Ohio?
I will not. The implications of this endeavor that we are attempting to understand is decision-making inside the Department of Justice. And that inside the decision-making, we've already heard back a number of times how the Department of Justice did not move forward in compliance, I believe, to their job to make a determination whether the facts would or should be taken further. With President Clinton, the FBI went and actually interviewed the president and the vice president about these matters and other people in the White House, and President Clinton lost his law license over that, and it ended up that there was an impeachment from the House side. Can you please talk about what should be done from normal and regular Department of Justice officials to see whether this has occurred and whether we are entitled to ask questions about that investigation from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the DOJ?
Thank you, Mr. Sessions. I think you're more than entitled. I think that you're obligated.
He lied about it
to
being a
look
state thing?
into
Oh, yeah,
the
100%. They do it all the
allegations
time.
that the whistleblowers have brought. The whistleblowers were very detailed in the investigative steps that they took, in those that they wanted to take but were prevented from taking, but would have taken in any other investigation. We don't have a window into where the roadblock was thrown. We don't know who threw it.
Would you think it would be proper for this committee to bring those individuals and to properly vet them about that? or is that the duty of the Department of Justice through the Federal Bureau of Investigation to get that done?
Well, I think it's your obligation. We know that the whistleblowers tried to remedy the obstruction from within the Internal Revenue Service and got no backup at all. They were left out to dry.
Does that include asking for metadata that might have supported any other investigation like this?
Absolutely. For example, the WhatsApp message where Hunter Biden says that he's sitting next to his father and is in the process of shaking down a Chinese businessman. The agents wanted to find out whether that was a true statement, and they could have found out, but they were denied the authority to pursue that inquiry.
By what authority?
We don't know exactly. All we know from the testimony is that they would request search warrants. They would
So,
be
Mr.
told-
Chairman, let the record reflect this as an inquiry for us to make a determination. Mr. Chairman, I'd also ask unanimous
Without objection
consent
to order.
Place into the record the articles which I had previously provided to this committee in testimony.
Mr. Chairman,
Without objection
another
to order.
unanimous consent motion. I'd like to offer a press release from the same Southern District of New York that you introduced for Lev Parnas that's entitled Devin Archer sentenced to a year and a day in prison for the fraudulent issuance and sale of more than $60 million of bonds.
Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner and best friend?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Without
Your
objection.
star
Sebastian
witness.
Robertson.
Yes, your star witness.
Chair recognizes
Engagement, baby. That's the name of the
Gomez
game.
from California for 5 minutes.
Thank you for helping out.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. So one of the things I want to kind of stress is that from the very beginning of this Congress, the Republicans had one thing in mind. Let's get Joe Biden, right? Let's get Joe Biden and let's find the evidence that showed he did something wrong. But when the evidence didn't exist, they would make up facts or they would exaggerate to an extent that it was like, honestly, mind-boggling. And I want to focus on one part first. The Republicans keep pointing out 20 shell companies of the Biden family.
Oh, come on.
These are actually 20
Hey, Metal Kitty Mom.
shell
How you
companies
doing?
of Hunter Biden. Okay, so anytime they say the Biden family, they're really saying Hunter Biden, because there hasn't been a connection between Joe Biden and
Yep.
these companies.
Correct.
To an extent.
This guy is nailing it.
Do we have the slides up? Go. First slide is, that's not the slide, but I'll show it. So there's an article from Washington Post, August 17, 2023, and it says how Republicans overhype the findings of the Hunter Biden probe. And it's specifically when it comes to these 20 shell companies, as they call them. They were actually, they were overhyped, and they gave them 3 Pinocchios. Mr. Chairman, I would like
Not
to
the Pinocchios.
consent to enter this into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Great. Next, so they keep focusing on these 20 companies, and then the Ways and Means Committee reveals 700 pages yesterday. It was really dramatic, right? They used Section 6103 to get these returns, and they say, "Hey, we're gonna show."
Yeah, aren't these
he did
maps a
something
bit
wrong.
interesting
The
compared to the Hunter
the
Biden
chairman
one
of
they
the
showed?
Ways and Means Committee,
Very
Mr.
interesting.
Adrian Smith, who also serves on this committee or sits on this committee, presented, when asked a simple question, they pointed out that this actually the WhatsApp message of Hunter Biden allegedly was sent in 2017 when Joe Biden wasn't even president, when Joe Biden wasn't even running for president. So unanimous consent to enter another article by Yahoo News. NBC reporter destroys GOP lawmakers' evidence against Joe Biden without even trying.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you so much. So let's dig into these 20 businesses. 20 companies. That's a lot of companies for an average American like myself. You know, I got a W-2. I filed my income taxes. My wife and I have simple returns. But when it came to President Trump, how many companies did he have? Anybody want to take a guess? Ms. O'Connor, how many companies did Mr. Trump have?
I have no idea the number, but I know
Okay,
they all
stop.
did something.
I
They
reclaim
built
my,
things,
I reclaim
they
my
sold
time. Thank
things,
you.
they provided services.
They all
reclaim
did
my time.
things.
Reclaim my time. See, you can't even answer a simple question, right? Yeah.
Donald Trump's companies would never do something, say, defraud students out of education. They'd never do that, would they?
Had over 500
Will the gentleman yield?
No, I will not.
Oh.
He also had over 500 companies. Over 500 companies. I looked at the tax returns. Why? Because I was on the Ways and Means Committee and I got to actually dig into it. Over 500 companies, actually between 517 to 543 companies. And Republicans had no concern about that. When it was, they were structured in a way, they were almost like a set of Russian nesting dolls, each one hiding the existence and who controlled the others. But did the Republicans bring it up? No. Did they have any concerns? No. But what happened last week or this week? Let's take a guess. A judge said that President Trump committed fraud, business fraud, for inflating the value of his net worth and his companies. But when it comes to the Republicans, they have no problem with that.
I found a
right?
dog.
They have no problem. They don't want to dig into that. When Trump controlled these 517 companies, when it came to Hunter Biden controlling 20, we see a direct line to Joe Biden. So that's what the problem is that they're cherry picking facts to connect it to Joe Biden, and when they don't have facts, they make it up, as they did earlier today when they put up tweets or text messages that were not connected. So the point is, everything they're doing is to muddy the waters. And I think it's disgraceful, because when it comes to a president that committed fraud, a president that caused an insurrection, a president that was also
I don't want to leave
sold
the dog here.
our government's national interest to the highest bidder, silence. With that, I yield back my time.
Would the gentleman yield a quick question about the
Let it
president's
follow.
son's 20 companies?
I yield back my time, Mr. Chairman.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Biggs from Arizona for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to put up on the board in just a second, but this is the entire
found a
transcript of
dog.
Devin Archer testimony. I submitted to the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you very much. So, in this particular colloquy that's going on, highlighted up there, you'll see that Mr. Archer says, let's start at the beginning. Let's go somewhere else. He says, the question is, did Hunter talk about how bringing his dad, Joe Biden, either to Ukraine or using his dad as vice president would add value in the eyes of Burisma officials? Answer, yes. How did it come up? He says, well, we were business partners. It just came up. We were business partners. We're business partners. Okay. What kind of leverage was Hunter trying to get by using his dad? Answer by Devin. I think it's more defensive, defensive leverage, that the value is there in his work. Also in this same document, I asked him, I said, the brand, he said, what is it? You keep talking about the Biden brand. I said, is it Dr. Jill? Is it Brother Jim? No. He just looks at me like I'm an idiot. He says, of course it's Joe Biden. Of course it's Joe Biden. Then you go back and you see Tony Bobulinski. What does he say? Quote, the Biden family aggressively leveraged the Biden family name to make millions of dollars from foreign entities, even though some were from communist-controlled China. And who is the Biden family asset? Is it Dr. Jill? No. Brother Jim? No. Any of the grandkids that got money from foreign companies? Nope. None of those folks. None of those folks. Then you get the stuff released from Ways and Means yesterday. This is Hunter Biden saying to his uncle Jim, BS, Jim, all around BS. Explain to me one thing Tony Bobulinski brings to my table that I so desperately need that I'm willing to sign over my family's brand. What's the brand? Joe Biden. And pretty much the rest of my business life. Why? Because that's the only product I got. Joe Biden, the vice president at that time. It's plain English. I'm cleaning it up a little bit. There's a lot of swear words in there. Why would I give this marginal bully the keys to my family's only asset? Oh, okay, so but we're told that there's nothing linking him. So I got to ask this question. Ms. Turley, I'm going to ask you a question. If the brand and what you're selling is Joe Biden, the then vice president, and if Joe Biden or his family is receiving some kind of benefit by the sale of access or, I'll leave it there, selling of access or even the illusion of access to Joe Biden, what does that lead you to conclude?
Well, if you look at actual cases I've cited in my testimony, benefits to family members can be viewed as a benefit to the principal. So there's not much debate about that. The issue of the inquiry is whether there has been there has been progress in the last few weeks, in that many people after the Archer testimony said, yeah, I get it, it's influence peddling. Some have said it's the illusion of access, which is...
That's the new defense.
Yeah.
That's the
but I think that calling it by its correct name is important, and it is a form of corruption. The benefits to the family members can be attributed to the principal, even under the higher standard of criminal cases. So what remains is the question is, did the president know that, direct that, participate in that?
Well, we know that he made 20 calls to business associates. We know he's having dinners with those associates, which leads me to the follow-up question, which I think is critical here, because these guys are looking for the gold bars or the cash stuffed in the Menendez coat. That doesn't happen very often, in my experience, having tried a lot of cases. So my question for you is, tell us about when you have circumstantial evidence vis-a-vis direct evidence. What's its value? Can you rest a conviction on circumstantial evidence?
You can. One of the things I point out, though, in my testimony is the Supreme Court has narrowed some of the elements on things like bribery, denial of honest services. Those elements are now narrower than they were. But it is notable in the Menendez indictment that they brought the conspiracy on honest services, that they still believe that these types of gifts obviously can be based on conspiracy theory. But you're clearly correct. I mean, if the allegations against Senator Menendez are true, that's really sort of old school bribery. Not since Jefferson and his freezer have we seen that type of raw evidence. Today, it's a lot more sophisticated. I think everyone in this room has to acknowledge that influence peddling is the favorite form of corruption in Washington. I think that's unassailable, and it's much more sophisticated than handing over gold bars or whatever is alleged in the Menendez case.
Mr. Chairman, I have a document I'd like to get in. I appreciate that my colleague trusts the American people, and the CNN poll that says the majority of Americans believe Joe Biden as vice president was involved with his son's business dealings. Submit that for the record.
Without objection, so
Mr.
ordered.
Chairman, I have another unanimous consent motion. I'd move with unanimous consent to introduce an order from the Supreme Court of the state of New York from Tuesday where the Trump Organization was found liable for fraud, and is specifically on page 28 where there's a paragraph entitled, quote, the Trump brand premium that was increased the value of Trump assets by 15 or 30% according to the Trump Organization.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair now recognizes Mr. Frost from Florida for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. An impeachment inquiry is a grave undertaking that is supposed to be in response to evidence of a crime. Mr. Chairman, you have questions. Many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle in this hearing have questions, but questions are not the basis for an impeachment. Evidence is. Mr. Turley, on September 1st, Speaker Kevin McCarthy said that he would not launch a fake impeachment inquiry, a sham impeachment inquiry. But then on September 12th, just 12 days later, he completely changed his mind. My question is why? In those 12 days, did hard evidence appear that clearly and directly links the President of the United States, Joe Biden, to a crime?
I can't answer to what was it that pushed the Speaker to make the decision. The courts have said you don't have to have that vote on the floor. I think it is a best practice.
But I'm very interested in those 12 days. And we know you're not a fact witness and you're talking about things that are already public. But is there anything that came up in those 12 days that linked the President of the United States to a crime? Yes or no?
I don't have any recollection of those 12 days.
Yeah, nothing. I can tell you it's nothing. And we've heard even from you that this is why we have this impeachment inquiry. But let's be clear, this inquiry has been going on since the day we got here. Since the day I was sworn in at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, this impeachment inquiry started. Let's pull back the curtain on what's really going on. There's no evidence.
By the way, this is our, I believe, our Gen Z, first Gen Z congressman. So, he's out here doing the work, man. Remember, he's the guy that everyone was making fun of because he had to couch surf when he got to Washington because he couldn't afford an apartment.
Of crime, only desperation and
I love him.
political
He's great.
pressure. This is what's going on. The far right called for the sham impeachment hearing with no evidence at the beginning of this year when we first got started. This impeachment inquiry has been going on. This is not the first hearing we've had in relation to this. On September 1st, the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, says, no, we're not going to do that. We don't have the evidence. We don't have the votes for it to pass on the House floor. We're not going to do it. A good decision, in my opinion. But then just 12 days later, 12 precious days later, something happens. I'm not sure what, but something happens because then the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, comes out and says, yes, we will do an impeachment inquiry. So what happened between these 12 days? It's very simple. 3 threats from members of his own caucus at the direction of former President Donald Trump changed his mind. Number one, the threat to force a vote on impeachment, which would lose on the House floor and be another embarrassment in the long list of embarrassments this Congress for the Speaker of the House. Number two, they would threat to shut down the government, something that will happen in just 2 days. And number three, and this is the one that really got to him, they said, you about to lose your job. And they said, we will remove you as Speaker from the House. And that scared him so much that Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House of the United States of Representatives, third in line of the presidency, completely caved due to the threats of people within his own caucus. This fake impeachment is based on desperate political calculation, not any evidence. And Mr. Chairman, you say this hearing is to establish the basis for this fake sham impeachment hearing, but these witnesses are not giving us any basis or giving us any evidence or giving us any solutions.
They
are giving us
several times.
I reclaim my time.
I have to stop because that's not a true statement.
I reclaim my time. These witnesses are not giving any answers. They're just asking more questions. We have one witness who has a lot of questions, Ms. O'Connor. Dubinsky, one witness who knows something about accounting but has no real involvement in what's going on. And Mr. Turley stopping here on his way to his next Fox News hit. This is not a serious inquiry. And impeachment is something that's very serious. And we have to ensure that we focus on the wants and needs of the American people. This is all for nothing. Half the crowd is left. There's no line outside. The goal here to distract from the government shutdown is not going to work. And to the Speaker, I have to say, you're being played by these extremists and Donald Trump. It's costing us our economy. And this entire fake impeachment inquiry isn't about the United States. It's about Hunter Biden. And the only thing the president can be guilty of here
Of course
is
they
being
treat him like a
father.
child.
I yield back to
I'm
the
sorry,
Chair now
Salmon
recognize
Moose.
Mr.
I think
Turner from.
you yielded to
Sorry, I yield to the vice-ranking member.
No, the gentleman from Florida yielded back. Chair
said he yielded back to the vice-ranking member.
I yielded to the vice-ranking member.
Thank you, and I'll claim some of that extra time back as well. Much of the Republican case and evidence has relied on words from Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden said this, Hunter Biden said that, therefore, case closed, there's something here. Professor Gerhardt, we know, I believe it's wide knowledge with the public, that Hunter Biden sadly was dealing with substance misuse disorder, correct?
Correct.
He's been under indictment, correct?
Correct.
Is this a reliable witness that you would deem?
Probably not.
In your assessment?
Gentleman's ladies, time's
Thank you very much.
Chair now recognizes
Chairman,
Mr. Armstrong. You
I
seek
have 3
recognition.
unanimous consent motions.
Yes.
One is a hearing notice from June 10th, 2019, with an impeachment hearing with Joyce Vance, who was not a fact witness, Barbara McQuaid, who was not a fact witness, and 70 story time with John Dean. Secondly, there's another unanimous consent motion for a hearing notice in judiciary with two witnesses here just a week before we voted on impeachment in 2019 with Michael Gerhardt and Jonathan Turley. Appreciate you both being here very much, but you were not fact witnesses at that point in time, and the Webster's definition of hypocrisy.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair now recognizes.
Mr. Chairman, I request unanimous.
Chair recognizes Ms. Mace.
Mr. Chairman, I request unanimous consent to enter an article into the record dated January 6, 2019. A member of this own committee, the day after she was sworn in, came into Congress, and this article says, Dem split in response to her words, impeach the mother effer, the day after she was sworn in. Some might even say these kinds of comments, not only are they hypocritical by the left in their arguments today, but that this is an embarrassment to the time and people of this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so
Some
ordered.
might say
Mr.
that,
Chairman,
but I
I'm
would
I'm
never say
afraid
that.
My friend, the gentlelady from South Carolina, just engaged in personalities against a fellow member of the committee.
Well, what she entered in the record was, I believe it was Ms. Tlaib's.
Well,
own
it was
word.
the commentary that accompanied it that I'm referring to.
It was an article from January 6,
what she
2018.
said.
Dem
Right.
split in response to impeach
Yeah.
Said
the
it.
mother effer comment by a member of this committee.
Right, it was the commentary, and in any event, it doesn't make any
No,
difference.
she said it. She actually said it.
No, but Rule 17
She said impeach the mother
The
effer.
commentary of what she is presenting.
The article title is
the
Dem
gentlelady's
split in response
commentary.
to
All right,
impeach the mother
let's
effer
get on with it. I mean,
That's
you know,
the
the
title of
government's
the
about to
article,
shut
Mr.
down. Okay.
Chairman.
Chair, order. Chair now recognizes Mr. LaTurner from Kansas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The mischaracterization of what this hearing is about by my colleagues on the other side is astounding. Throughout the presidency of Joe Biden, the White House has attempted to claim that the president did not talk to Hunter about his business dealings. Joe Biden even said during the 2020 presidential debate that no members of his family received money from China. He said, and I quote, "My son has not made money in terms of this thing about China. Nobody else has made money from China," end quote. The White House strategy has been deny, 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 lie, and then counterattack.
Hunter's
But
laptop
the
is akin to
evidence
January
and the
6th.
facts
You know
have
it.
forced
A
the White House
laptop
to
is the
change
same
its
as trying to
story
overthrow the
time
government.
and time again.
Do you
The
have a
White House
laptop?
handlers continue to shift
FBI
the
coming for
goalposts,
you.
and President Biden continues to lie. How can President Biden continue to maintain that Hunter's private business was simply that, private, when it's clear from bank records, emails, and testimony that Joe Biden was intimately involved in Hunter's pay-to-play schemes and crooked
Citation needed.
foreign business dealings? This image shows an email between Hunter Biden and his business associates stating the setup of equity in a Chinese-owned energy venture. This particular business deal was with CEFC, a Chinese-owned energy conglomerate. This email lays out the payment structure for equity in the company, which was known to be tied to the Chinese Communist Party through its owner, Chairman Yi Jinping. The committee's investigation into the Biden family, including evidence turned over through various document productions, has shown that these men were all in business with Hunter Biden at one time or another. James Gillier, Tony Bobulinski, and Rob Walker on separate occasions, along with other Hunter business partners, have confirmed what this email said, that they were all getting a cut. Who else was getting a cut?
What is the date of that email, sir?
This is my time.
I'm just asking the date.
This
since
is
you're
my,
entering something
this is
into
my
the record.
time. Mr. Chairman, I ask that my
Yep.
time be restored.
Please restore Mr. LaTurner's time.
Thank you. Who else was getting a cut? According to this email, 10% was going to the big guy. What I'm sure my colleagues on the other side are asking themselves is, who's the big guy? Well, let me tell you. We learned in the FBI's FD 1023 that Zlochevsky called Joe Biden the big guy. Tony Bobulinski also has corroborated that Joe Biden is the big guy. Rob Walker, an IRS whistleblower, say that Joe Biden is the big guy. And finally, the Justice Department obstructed investigators in Delaware who wanted to look into, you guessed it, the big guy.
Hey, Robert Adset.
Listen, folks, it is obvious. Joe Biden is the big guy. And so what do we have here? We have the president saying that he had nothing to do with it, that Hunter Biden and no one in the family profited from China. And we have evidence here that the big guy was getting 10%. Let me read you a definition of a trendy word here lately. Gaslighting. It's a form of psychological manipulation in which an abuser
trendy,
attempts to
fancy
gain power
new
and control
word.
over the other person by distorting reality and forcing them to question their own judgment and intuition. I would say to the American people, look at the evidence before you and make a judgment, and do not allow the White House or our colleagues on the other side of the aisle try to convince you that what you're seeing isn't the truth, trying to convince you that you're crazy. Mr. Dubinsky, you have extensive experience as an expert witness and consultant in the areas of white-collar crime, financial fraud, and corruption. Is it characteristic of these types of crimes that actors hide behind nicknames or other pseudonyms to mask their identity?
It's very common.
What about this first email image is characteristic of financial crimes that you have investigated or provided expert testimony on in the past?
Well, typically you'll see code names used and money is being paid to somebody under that code name, and that's how these processes work.
Let me ask you something. You're very experienced. When conducting an investigation, if your boss prevented you from taking investigative steps, how would you react? How would it affect your findings?
First, it would be extremely troubling if I was told not to continue to investigate something, and if I was put in that position, I'd probably withdraw from the investigation.
Has the Department of Justice ever restricted any of your investigative steps?
No, they have not.
It's amazing. Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Ms. Lee from Pennsylvania for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 3 hours and 45 or so minutes into this, the Republicans' own witnesses have confirmed that they have seen no evidence of any evidence. I think that if my Republican colleagues had a so-called smoking gun, they would have presented it by now and would have talked about it
Can the gentlelady read a bank statement, an email, a text message?
Are you asking her to yield,
reclaiming
Mr.
my
Chairman?
time. Thank you.
All right.
Reclaiming my time. Instead, we're sitting here with no fact witnesses and no evidence in this sham so-called impeachment to distract from their inability to fulfill their basic duty.
Get
to
their
fund
ass.
and run our government. Republicans
Do
know
it.
the American people don't want their shutdown. So instead, the Republicans on this committee are attempting to divert and distract the American people's attention by spending taxpayer dollars on this sham impeachment hearing 2 days before they shut the government down in hopes that the media, and I don't just mean Fox News, will fall for their scheme and give more airtime to the lies being told on this committee today than the real life impact their shutdown will have on even their own constituents' lives. In fact, in Chairman Comer's district, Republicans' shutdown will cost 8,937 of his constituents their paychecks. In Jim Jordan's district, Republicans' shutdown will cost
I think that's Summer Lee.
3,939 of his constituents their paychecks. In Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, Republicans' shutdown will cost 6,306 of her constituents their paychecks. In Lauren Boebert's district, Republicans shut down.
Democrats are the party of shutdowns. You guys love shutdowns.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
In Lauren Boebert's district, Republicans
Suck
shutdown
a
will cost
fucking dick.
9,016
I'm gonna
of
keep
her constituents
talking.
Their paycheck. In Paul Gosar's Arizona district, Republicans shutdown will cost 12,349 of his constituents their paycheck. In Byron Donalds, 3,235 folks paycheck. In Andy Biggs, 8,433. In Lisa McLean, 7,286. In Scott Perry's Pennsylvania district and the capital of my Commonwealth, Republicans shutdown will cost 5,445 of his constituents who will lose their paycheck. Indeed, when you add it all up, Republicans' shutdown will cost 217,583 of their constituents on this committee's paychecks, their income for who knows how long. Let that sink in for a second. Those are our mothers, our fathers, caretakers, brothers, sisters, moms, dad, grandmas, grandpas, friends, neighbors, beloved community members, veterans who won't know how their food or medicine will be paid for or where their rent money is coming from. Many of them vote Republican, but I bet you not one of them cares more about Hunter Biden's laptop or helping Kevin McCarthy keep his gig as leader or speaker of his dysfunctional caucus than they care about receiving their paycheck and making their ends meet. And so the Republicans on this committee are betting that we'll spend this hearing engaging in partisan bickering over their favorite buzzwords rather than talking about how the MAGA shutdown will crush all of our constituents. To be honest, I don't quite care about private citizen Hunter, whom the proper authorities are dealing with, or the cable news culture war distractions. I care about the 7 million babies, children, mothers across this country who after Sunday will lose access to food and formula, over 10,000 in my district alone. I care about 300,000 families and 20,000 veterans who after Sunday could face eviction from their homes. Rare diseases and cancer patients whose experimental trials will be delayed for months. And I care about our seniors unable to get help with Social Security and Medicare. And make no mistake, their attacks are targeted, both in who's behind them and who are going to be hurt most. The most marginalized folks bear the brunt of these MAGA Republicans' attacks. Black folks, brown folks, trans folks, poor folks, disabled folks. Keeping that struggle in mind, we've had 2 hearings on the infant formula shortage on the subcommittee chaired by Congressman McClain.
Chad.
With the 320,000 babies, women, and children in her home state of Michigan about to go hungry due to her party's shutdown, it seems like my Republican colleagues only care about an issue when they can point the finger in another direction, much like what's going on in this embarrassment of a hearing today. Mr. Gerhardt, in one of your recent op-eds, and you have repeated it here, you mentioned that a good test for assessing the constitutionality of a governmental action is to switch the names of the political parties and the actors involved. If the outcome is the same, it is a good sign of neutrality. If the outcome is not the same, then there's a good chance that partisanship is the driving force. I think we can safely say that this inquiry would fail that neutrality test. And since I don't have time, I think we can say that we are here, America, in this sham hearing, prioritizing the political needs of the Republican Party, pushing a lie for Donald Trump as you go hungry and you lose your homes. Shameful.
Summerlee is
we're gonna take
Pennsylvania's
a 10-minute
12th
recess.
district. So yeah, she's been really fucking cool. I think she's one of the newer progressive members of Congress. But again, getting people like her elected, that's what we've been trying to do when we do organizing, you know? We can get people like her elected who will actually fight and give a shit. Okay, they take a break.
Were Joe Biden.
All right, we're gonna take this opportunity to take a little break of our own. Hello, chat. How we doing? How we doing? She's so based. Oh my god. Yeah. She has some throwing batteries at Santa energy. Yeah. But harnessed for good. How long has she been in office here? Yeah, she defeated, oh, no, like, she's endorsed by the DSA. She's based. She's good. She's good. She's good stuff. Honestly, if the DSA is endorsing a candidate, they're probably pretty good. She defeated, I believe, was Paul Costa a Democrat? Yeah. Summerlee ousted the incumbent in the primary and then went on to win the district. Kind of a AOC situation. I'm probably make some snacks now, get a glass of wine. I need to endure this. Yeah, but BB Banui, I have to say, there is light at the end of the tunnel when we finish this. It's time for People's Court, baby. Time for People's Court, baby. So stick around for that. We're gonna switch gears a little bit into like a subathon style situation. But I do want to say I've been going for like 7 or 8 hours now. If you're enjoying the stream, please hit that follow button. Please hit the subscribe button, like the stream, and consider dropping some subs or donos. Any subs or donos you send my way will count towards Peepo's Court. Every 5 subs is another Peepo's Court for all of y'all. So consider going hard on those donos. I do not know what that means, but it sounds pog. It's one of my community's favorite things. We watch episodes of a daytime television show called The People's Court, and we bet on the outcome of the court case using channel points over on Twitch. So it's just silly. It's silly fun. I'm gonna get some more water. I had to filter some more, so I'll be right back. Oh, Judge Millian. Today's been a wild one. That and the Let's Sausage guy. Well, the sausage guy is fun every once in a while. I don't know if people like the ordinary sausage as like a subathon thing. I think people like ordinary sausage as just like a fun stream thing. I think generally you guys like Kitchen Nightmares and Peepo's Court. I want to make popcorn. I mean, it might not be too loud. Maybe they're heavy sleepers. Sausage is a special treat. True. Sausage is a sometimes food.
Words mean things.
Damn, what a valuable contribution to our country. Thank you for your service, sir. Words mean things. What a revolutionary concept.
Or at least they should. Here's Joe Biden's words from August 28, 2019. First of all, I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything to do with their business. From September the same year, I have never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. October, same year, quote, I don't discuss business with my son. Were Joe Biden's words true? No, they were false. So why did he lie repeatedly? In an interview back in 2019 with The New Yorker, even Hunter admitted that he talked to his dad about business, specifically Burisma. Many of Hunter Biden's business associates have testified Joe Biden met with them. 2 of the ones closest to Hunter, Rob Walker and Devin Archer, were among them. So they not only spoke to him, they took, a lot of the business associates took photos with him. They played golf with him. Joe Biden gave them White House tours. He wrote letters of recommendation for their children and shared fancy dinners as well. So let's also talk about patterns. Yuri Luzkov and Yelena Baturina. They are Russian, they were married, Russian oligarch billionaires. Michael McFaul, the U.S. ambassador to Russia, ID'd Luzkov as being corrupt. Yelena Baturina wires $3.5 million to Hunter Biden. Soon thereafter, who does she have dinner with? Then Vice President Joe Biden. Kenez Rakashev, and Karim Mazimov, Kazakhstani nationals. Mazimov used to be the prime minister. He's now in prison. Rakashev wires $142,300 to Hunter Biden. The very next day, Hunter Biden buys a Porsche for $142,300. And then soon after, who do you think Kenez Rakashev has dinner with? Say it with me. Then Vice President Joe Biden. Vadim Pazarski and Mykola Zolchevsky, the CEO and CFO of Burisma. U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Pyatt, calls Zolchevsky a poster child of corruption. Those two fellas paid Hunter Biden's shell companies a total of $3.3 million. And who do you think Vadym Pozharskyi had dinner with? Again, say it with me all at once. Then Vice President Joe Biden. So here's a pattern. You have crooked foreigners that deliver pallets of cash to the Bidens, and then they have dinner with Joe. And apparently Joe Biden is one hell of an expensive dinner date. And if that's not selling political access, I don't know what is. My Democratic colleagues...
Again, you have to show that. You can't imply that. You have to show it with evidence. Again, this is just like, see, this thing happened, and then this thing happened later. Coincidence? I think not. But like, you gotta show that there was like a pay-to-play situation here. You have to actually demonstrate that. And then you have to demonstrate that Joe Biden knew about it and facilitated it and gave orders to this effect. And you can't, otherwise you would have shown it by now.
Report ad nauseum when they talk to the media that there's no direct evidence linking Joe Biden to his son's crimes. Really? This is a FD 1023, which is used by the FBI when confidential informants give them information. This 1023 is only as good as the source. It could be garbage or it could be gold. The FBI describes...
Why would you say that about your own... Why would you say that about your own source that you're presenting? This affidavit is only as good as the informant. And... yeah, is it good? Is the informant good? Is it trustworthy? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Words mean things.
This source is somebody that is highly reliable and very trustworthy. In fact, they've worked with him for over a decade and paid him well over $100,000. What he has given to them is always checked out. This, ladies and gentlemen, is gold. Consider this with weight and gravity. So what does this say? I don't know what the confidential informant's name is, so I'm going to call him Ivan. Ivan is not his real name, but Ivan describes Vadym Pozharskyi directly admitting to him in a confidential conversation that they hired a not-so-smart Hunter Biden to protect us, quote, through his dad from all kinds of problems. Then Ivan speaks directly to CEO Zlochevsky, and Zlochevsky confides that
I do have to say, this would be really interesting if you can back it up with evidence.
Hunter Biden will take care of those corruption issues through his dad. Zlochevsky is being investigated by Viktor Shokin, a Ukrainian prosecutor. Joe Biden suddenly begins to call for Shokin's removal. Now, Ivan is also told by Zlochevsky that it cost him $5 million to pay one Biden and $5 million to pay the other. This is direct evidence of naked corruption and bribery. Zlochevsky also admitted to Ivan that both Bidens pushed him to pay them.
Actually, this isn't direct evidence. This is hearsay evidence? Like, this is... I heard a guy say this. That's it. That's all this is.
And to keep Hunter Biden on the board. Please keep in mind, these were confidential conversations. Also interesting that Zlochevsky referred to Biden as the big guy. And I doubt he knows Tony Bobulinski. Shokin seized 2 homes, land, and a Rolls Royce from Zlochevsky. When he was fired, the Ukrainian president admitted in a phone call to none other than Joe Biden that Shokin didn't do anything wrong, but at your behest, we fired him. And then $1 billion of aid that was being withheld was given to Ukraine. And lastly, after Shokin was fired, Hunter Biden and the other members of the Burisma board wrote a letter to the new prosecutor demanding that Zlochevsky, the investigation into Zlochevsky, ended. And you know what? Shockingly, it did. The message was sent, and the Bidens delivered. Mr. Dubinsky, in your experience in financial investigations, you follow, quote unquote, you follow the money. If you were investigating this and looking at $5 million payment from Burisma to Joe Biden, what kinds of information or patterns would you be looking for?
Well, I'd want to know who, what, when, where, and why. What's going on? Why is the money moving? What's it for? What's the substance behind it? And talk to people. Look at documents and talk to people. That's what we do in investigations. I would venture to say everybody in this chamber, if they were the CEO of a company and they saw money moving like that within their own company, they'd want to get to the truth. They'd want to find out, why is that money moving? Why is somebody paying that money out? Those are the questions that need to be asked and get to the bottom of.
Mr. Chairman, I have another unanimous consent request. I'd like to enter into the record a July 9th, 2016 letter from 3 Burisma board members, including Hunter Biden, to Yuri Lutsenko, who replaced Shokin as the prosecutor general, expressing concern that Mr. Lutsenko had initiated an investigation into Burisma.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair recognizes Mr. Kassar from Texas.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to begin with a quote. The people of America elected all 435 of us to do the things they expect Congress to do. Real business, not theater. Try to have some type of prescription drug reform legislation this year. But instead, the majority party is conducting baseless impeachment hearings. Who do we think said this quote? Was it Nancy Pelosi? Maybe Ranking Member Jamie Raskin? Mr. Chairman, you might recognize that quote because you said this in 2019. You said it on the floor of the U.S. House, saying impeaching Donald Trump was political theater. Trump was first impeached for attempting to extort a foreign president into helping the Trump presidential campaign. And if you didn't consider that criminal, how about when Trump was impeached trying to overthrow the results of the presidential election and then incited a violent insurrection against the government? So if you thought that impeaching Trump was political theater, then what would you call this? This is a disgrace. And I hope that someday top Republican officials will find some integrity. In the case of Trump, because you fear his social media wrath, right-wing officials will deny all evidence against Trump come hell or high water. But in the case of President Joe Biden, you decided to start the impeaching now and figure out the whole evidence thing later. And you still haven't figured it out. Your own Republican-called witnesses today say they don't see the evidence to impeach President Joe Biden. Bunch of stuff about Hunter this, Hunter that, but they've said they don't see the evidence to impeach Joe Biden. That is a disgraceful double standard. It damages our democracy, insults the institution of Congress, and more than anything, disgraces this body in the eyes of the American public. This inquiry is a cynical attempt to tar everyone, to make everyone look suspect, make everyone look corrupt, so that voters just give up and say, there's not much difference here. But we cannot give up on discerning truth from propaganda. We cannot give up on our collective governance. Congress is a place where historically people of enormous integrity have throughout history taken on big challenges of inequality, injustice, instability. We can and must impartially look at the evidence before us and have equal justice under the law. And the evidence before us shows no wrongdoing by President Biden. We haven't seen that evidence throughout the testimony today. Your own Republican-called witnesses have said they haven't seen that kind of evidence. There is separate evidence that supports indictments, unrelated indictments against his son, Hunter, and multiple indictments spanning 91 criminal charges against former President Trump. I, for one, am grateful we have an independent judicial system where a president's son or a former president like Trump can be investigated and prosecuted if they violate the law. It is my firm belief that Hunter and Trump should both face trial and, if guilty, be held accountable for the crimes they've been accused of. Can everyone on the Oversight Committee say the same thing? Will members of the Oversight Committee please raise your hand if you believe both Hunter and Trump should be held accountable for any of the indictments against them, if convicted by a jury of their peers? We can take a minute. No, it's serious. This is a serious matter. If y'all need to think about it, we can take a moment and think about it. It is serious. This is very serious. Think about it. Should both Hunter and Trump be held accountable? I want to see whether you raise your hand. Should Hunter and Trump both be held accountable if they are found guilty on any of their indictments? Raise your hand if you think that equal justice under the law applies and Trump should be held accountable. I think it is worse than embarrassing that Republicans won't raise their hands. They refuse to say that equal justice under the law should apply to everyone. And when you step back and think about it,
Then what about the
kind of
January
scary.
6th defendants?
It's kind of scary. This double standard insults the institutions of Congress that people fought and died to build. This impeachment hearing clearly is not about justice. We cannot say equal justice under the law for everyone except for the guy who holds the leash. I'll yield the rest of my time to Ranking Member Raskin.
Thank you. I think as you were being interrupted by several colleagues, I heard one question posed by the distinguished gentlelady from Georgia who said, what about the January 6th defendants, all of whom had lawyers, due process, the presumption of innocence, and they were convicted of various things, including assaulting federal officers and Metropolitan Police.
What about
as well as
the
Capitol
BLM
Police.
rioters and $2 billion of damage
Mr. Raskin,
in
if I
America?
can take my time back.
Yes, I'll yield
We've
back.
heard, because it wasn't on the microphones, multiple members saying it's wrong that January 6th rioters
But what about?
were convicted
But what
by a jury
about?
of their peers. That is disturbing. We've started to get used to it, but we can't get used to it.
Gentleman's
It's scary.
time has expired. Now, Chair recognizes Mr.
Chairman, point of-
Perry.
Point of order.
Chair recognizes Mr. Fallon for a
I
point of
ask,
order.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask unanimous consent to enter the 1020 FD 1023 into the record.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair now recognizes Mr. Perry from Pennsylvania for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In an attempt to establish some patterns here and get the actual facts out, the media won't report. The president's son seemed to benefit often from government positions as far back as 1996. He refused his first
I am
job
live on
at
Riverboat.gg.
NBNA. Then Senator Joe Biden had supported the controversial
Hey, Chris
bankruptcy
Huggy.
bill, which really favored the company to the peril of average citizens, and he got the name Senator for MNBA. After
Oh,
which
Todd
Hunter
Pemper.
then he continued to benefit from his
As
father's
a-
public position.
As a Minnesotan, I can't applaud the Packers being up 3-0. I'm sorry, but I wish you the best. And yeah, things are going well. I'm just been streaming. It's been a while since we went on a huge tear of streaming content, you know. And we're gonna wrap up this first Biden impeachment hearing, and then we're going to transition into some fun times.
And in 2011, he was contacted by Che Fang, who's a Chinese politician and businessman. They wanted to form a joint investment firm that then became a subsidiary of the Bank of China. Now, it seems like the president's the president's son's only skill is leveraging his family name. It essentially seems like it comes to him like swimming comes to a fish. If we could put up on the screen an email from between Devin Archer and the president's son. And if you can see here where he's asked, why does the super chairman love me so much? And the answer is, it's easy. It has nothing to do with me and everything to do with my last name. That's the president's son. That's not me saying it. That's the president's son. He openly acknowledged it doesn't come from education or business acumen. It comes from his name. And let's face it, it is his name, but it's not his name that was garnering all the attention. Both were selling their name, one to MBNA and the other to the highest bidder. Devin Archer, in his transcribed interview, if you'll put that on the screen, please, he confirmed it. If I can get Mr. Archer's testimony on the screen. Well, while it's getting up there, because the clock's ticking in. Biden family, he confirmed it and said the Biden family was the product or the brand. And it's fair to say, in quotes, that Joe Biden was the brand and obviously brought most value to the brand. I make that case because the president's son was addicted to drugs and he was frequenting prostitutes, so I suspect his value of a brand was pretty low compared to his father, who was the vice president of the United States. I mean, companies brand their product.
I don't know. Dudes seeing prostitutes is kind of like a cool thing, right? Like all the red pill influencers hire escorts. That's where they find all the beautiful women to hang around with them. Okay, they just hire escorts. It's really not that different to hire prostitutes.
Whether it's a food company or a car company.
I don't know. Like the impugning of his character for like having sex with prostitutes. I don't get that. that doesn't make sense to me. But I also think sex work should just be legal anyway, so, you know.
Or shoe company, they brand it because it provides trust by their buyers, or from their buyers. Now, this committee first released a bank memo on March 16, 2023, that showed that less than 2 months after the vice president left office, State Energy HK Limited sent Robinson Walker, again a very close friend and business associate of the Biden family, $3 million. Shortly thereafter, literally the next day, and within the next series of days, Robinson Walker sent over $1 million to the Biden family and associated businesses, and they were sent in suspect incremental payments. And it follows a pattern. I can give you other instances where the exact same thing occurred. 1/3 for Robinson Walker, 1/3, 1/3 here, 1/3 there. That's how it worked out. Now, the Biden family provided no legitimate services, yet Hallie Biden, reportedly working as a school counselor, was provided some of this money. For what? What was the product or what was the service? Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter into record the first bank record memos dated
How dare
March 16,
she, a school teacher, make
2023,
money?
New evidence resulting from the Oversight Committee's investigation of the Biden family's influence peddling and business schemes, showing that the Biden family members and Biden associated businesses received over $1 million from State Energy HK Limited, a Chinese company.
Without objection to order.
Thank you. Mr. Turley, thank you for being here. What is influence peddling?
Influence peddling is to sell access or influence to an office holder to achieve some end. There's sometimes a very clear quid pro quo, which is a specific act that you want. Sometimes it's a general pattern of corruption of favoring someone. I actually, in my testimony, gave I believe it was the Canadian definition, which I thought was a particularly good one under their law. But the United States also signed off on a convention on public corruption that also has definitions that are relevant.
Mr. Dubinsky, in the remaining time, this money, these wires being sent to family members with no apparent legitimate services being rendered, is this something that you would find interest in and would, in yourself, if charged with it, would investigate on your own?
Gentlemen, time's expired, but please answer the question.
It would be a red flag, and I would follow up on that and see where it leads.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a point of order.
Take your point.
I didn't want to interrupt the distinction.
Again, I really have to emphasize, how does any of this have anything to do with Joe Biden? It's honestly incredible. They've been talking for 5 hours. And nothing. They really don't have anything.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania, but he referred to an email at the beginning of his testimony. We've not been provided a copy of that email, and I don't know where it came from. What is the source of that material?
Source of the materials from Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden sent it to the committee? Hunter Biden sent that to the committee? Because, we have a rule on this. We've got to be provided all material that's going to be entered in the record. Our colleagues keep relying on emails that are purportedly obtained from Hunter Biden's laptop, but we have no idea if those emails are authentic. As you know, you've not shared with us what you say is the hard drive to Hunter Biden's laptop, and nobody's verified them. And the
CBS is verified, and the CBS News did a forensic audit.
How is it? How have the Democrats not have had access to Hunter Biden's laptop for this entire thing? How is that possible?
So they're legitimate.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to have the email entered into the record.
Well, then I'm going to object to it
objection.
because we don't know what the basis of that is.
We'll
And we
work
had
on
this-
getting you an
okay.
answer for
If I could just
Right.
say, the computer repair guy who disseminated that stuff says he cannot account for the chain of custody of the alleged hard drive of the laptop. So we have no idea where that comes from.
And we'll get you the answer to that, but I
Please.
would like to remind the ranking member that the president's son is now suing the repair guy for leaking his laptop. Remember, he denied it
Yeah.
forever, and you all
But he
said it
can't
was
account
Russian
for the
manipulation.
custody.
Now it's
Right. No, I agree with you, but he can't account for the custody of it either.
we'll,
Nobody
we'll,
knows.
We'll get
what's
you the
been put
answer
in
on the source of the email. Chair now recognizes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record our own 2023 transcribed interview with our committee of Devin Archer, where he clearly states, quote, the brand
already
was
in the
Washington,
record.
D.C., not President Biden. He was asked, the brand was really Joe Biden, and Mr. Archer responded, D.C. was the brand.
Without objection to order, it's in the record twice now.
Well, I guess it's a reminder.
So Chair recognizes Ms. Crockett from Texas.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Before I begin my questioning, I want to remind everyone that the information recorded in the FBI Form 1023 that my Republican colleagues keep citing is not evidence of anything. This form reflects years-old, secondhand, unverified information from a Ukrainian oligarch as relayed to the FBI by a confidential human source. These unverified secondhand allegations have been repeatedly debunked and undermined, including by the confidential human source who relayed this information to the FBI. The tip recorded in the Form 1023 was thoroughly explored by the U.S. attorney handpicked by Donald Trump, which was Attorney General William Barr, and the assessment was closed. Finally, Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's former business partner, who worked with the Ukrainian oligarch in question, told this committee in a transcribed interview in July that he had no knowledge of any such payments allegedly described in this form. Repeating the same lies will not somehow turn them into truths. Kind of like the election that Trump lost. Say it with me. He lost it. Repeating the same lie that he won wasn't going to turn the election around. The lost in this chamber keep pushing lies and lunacy on behalf of a multi-time loser. So if we're going to talk about China, let's go ahead and talk about China. And let's talk about the dealings. And let me point out the fact that right now, each of you has admitted that none of you are fact witnesses. We walked in without facts. And unfortunately, because what we say isn't necessarily evidence, we have wasted the American people's time. And we are going to walk out of this chamber and we still have no facts that are leading to anything. But let me give y'all
10,000%, lady.
So I have a document that I will ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record. It's a fact sheet on President Trump's shady business dealings with the Chinese government.
What are you entering in? A record from who?
This is from the Congressional Integrity.
Congressional Integrity Project, the dark money pack?
I object.
I object to that too.
Of course y'all gonna object, but we gonna talk about it. So, it says Trump has extensive financial ties to the Chinese government. President Trump collected millions from Chinese government-owned entities while in office. I have the best tenants in the world, President Trump was well aware of the multi-million-dollar lease to Chinese interests. President Trump promised to donate foreign government profits while in office, but he donated less than a third of his proceeds from the Chinese government. President Trump maintained 3 foreign bank accounts while in office, including one in China. President Trump's business with China raised legal and ethical concerns. President Xi loves the people of China. He loves his country, and he's doing a very good job. Let me tell you something. I don't want to talk about what y'all want to act like is some big mystery, because we keep sitting here and Professor Gerhardt, just to be clear, as my colleagues have even tried to provide evidence, which they're not the ones to provide evidence, have you ever heard them say if, since we've been sitting here for I don't know how long?
Yes, I've been taking a tally.
Oh, okay. Can you show us? Can you tell us what the tally is?
More than 35 times, the Republican witnesses and Republican members of the committee have used the word if.
Thank you so much for that. Because honestly, if they would continue to say if or Hunter and we were playing a drinking game, I would be drunk by now. Because I promise you, they have not talked about the subject of this, which would be the president. But let me tell you something that was so disturbing as
Oh, girl, if you were playing a drinking game and you'd take a drink every time they said Hunter, you'd be dead by now.
I walked in to this chamber today. As I prepared, I said, what is the crime? Because when you're talking about impeachment, you're talking about high crimes or misdemeanors. And I can't seem to find the crime. And honestly, no one has testified of what crime they believe the president of the United States has committed. But when we start talking about things that look like evidence, they want to act like they blind. They don't know what this is. These are our national secrets. Looks like in the shitter to me. This looks like more evidence
I love
of our
her.
national secrets, say on a stage at Mar-a-Lago. When we're talking about somebody that's committed high crimes, it's at least indictments. Let's say 32 counts related to unauthorized retention of national security secrets, 7 counts related to obstructing the investigation, 3 false statements, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, falsifying business records, conspiracy to defraud the United States, 2 counts related to efforts to obstruct the vote certification proceedings, 1 count of conspiracy to violate civil rights, 23 counts related to forgery or false document statements, 8 counts related to soliciting, and I could go on because he's got 91 counts pending right now. But I will tell you what the president has been guilty of. He has unfortunately been guilty of loving his child unconditionally, and that is the only evidence that they have brought forward. And honestly, I hope and pray that my parents love me half as much as he loves his child. Until they find some evidence, we need to get back to the people's work, which means keeping this government open so that people don't go hungry in the streets of the United States. And I will yield.
I love her.
Chair recognizes Mr. Timmons from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to try to simplify this for the American people. My colleagues across the aisle allege that this inquiry is improper and that this hearing is improper, but that could not be further from the truth. We now have enormous amounts of evidence indicate that Hunter Biden was engaged in nefarious and illegal activities with foreign nationals from China, Romania, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Russia, all while making millions of dollars doing so. We don't even know the full extent of it yet. To date, we've discovered up to $25 million in payments, and that's without even having Hunter Biden's personal bank records. The question is this, though. This is the question. This is why we're here. What did Joe Biden know and when? Due to the evidence that we've found to date, Speaker McCarthy appropriately initiated an impeachment inquiry to give us additional tools to get the answer to that question. Based on the circumstantial evidence we have, the laptop, the whistleblowers, shell companies' bank records, and testimony from Devin Archer, this Congress has a duty to further investigate whether Vice President Joe Biden was an affable, loving father, simply taken advantage of by his delinquent son, or a knowing participant who was complicit in the scheme and financially compensated for his role. That is why we are here today, to answer that simple question, to determine if our current president is compromised. Look, this scheme is complicated. All these countries and all these different roles different people played, but the
yeah,
plan
it's
is
so
simple
complicated.
and repeated often. A foreign client has a problem. The foreign client pays a Biden. The vice president leverages influence to force favorable outcomes for the client. The Biden
It's just
family
too
earns their
complicated
fee.
for our
That's the
tiny
scheme.
brains.
We've seen it played over and over. As we continue to investigate all of this wrongdoing, I've put a lot of time trying to figure out how all this got started. In 2014, it seems that Vice President Biden, after 4 decades of public service and thinking he would never hold public office again, started down a slippery slope. Perhaps he just wanted to help his struggling son. Maybe he never intended to sell policy decisions and for the Biden family to get millions of dollars. But
how was he selling policy decisions when he wasn't in office? Again,
there's mounting evidence that suggests that that may very be what has happened. It all began in the spring of 2014, though. Hunter Biden gets his father to have dinner with foreign nationals and his business partner, Devin Archer, in Georgetown. The foreign nationals attending this dinner were Karim Masimov, the Prime Minister of Kazakhstan, Kenes Rakishev, a Kazakhstani oligarch, Yelena Baturina, a Russian oligarch who also happened to be the wife of the mayor of Moscow. We know that beginning in early 2014, Baturina sent a $3.5
Hey,
million
condensed
wire
can of
to
meat.
one of
How
Hunter
you
Biden's
doing?
shell companies.
Hey, Perpetual
and Rakishev
Code.
wired $142,300 to yet another shell company for Hunter Biden to buy a Porsche. We have the bank records to prove this. So the logical question here is, what was this money for? What were the goals of those payments? For Baturina, it seems, her motives were clear. She knew that Russia was going to invade Crimea, and as a response to the invasion, the Obama administration would inevitably announce sanctions and visa bans. Who's left off the list that the Obama administration published? Who was noticeably missing? Yelena Baturina, the richest woman in Russia, the woman who wired Hunter Biden $3.5 million just days earlier. That's just a coincidence. For Rakishev, the motive was to leverage Biden's influence to aid in the facilitation of the sale of Kazakhstani state oil rights to Burisma. And guess what? In December of the same year, Rakishev's oil company and Burisma joined a Chinese Communist Party-linked company and announced a deal. Everyone got rich. Again, another amazing coincidence. These are only the first 2 of dozens of examples of the scheme. A foreign client has a problem. A foreign client pays a Biden. Vice President leverages influence to force a favorable outcome for the client. Biden family earns their fee. Our work over the last 9 months warrants additional scrutiny of Biden family members and business associates and requires additional tools at our disposal to uncover whether Joe Biden was complicit. Again, the purpose of this investigation. Our next steps are to subpoena additional documents that will give context to these transactions to help determine Joe Biden's culpability. We're going to subpoena Hunter Biden's personal bank records, various business records such as invoices and contracts to clarify what these payments were for, Secret Service logs detailing movement patterns of then Vice President. The list goes on and on. And again, I just want everybody to remember, we're doing this because the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the IRS refuse to do their job. And we have evidence just in the last week that they're actively concealing these possible crimes. If we discover that Joe Biden was taking half of Hunter Biden's income, like Hunter told his daughter in a text message, I hope that my Democrat colleagues will put politics aside, do the right thing, and join us in impeaching a corrupt president who sold out the American people. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
And if it turns out that he didn't do that, how are you going to make up to the American people for wasting everyone's time and taxpayer dollars?
Yields back. Chair now recognizes Mr. Goldman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This hearing is entitled The Basis for an Impeachment Inquiry. You would think that after 8 months of an investigation, we would not need to have a hearing with no witness who has any direct knowledge of the evidence to determine that there is a basis for this impeachment inquiry. And this is an impeachment inquiry. Mr. Turley and Mr. Gerhardt testified in 2019 in the official impeachment process in the Judiciary Committee. The inquiry was in the Intelligence Committee. And in the Intelligence Committee, there were 17 first-hand witnesses with direct knowledge of the allegations. And the public hearings had 12 witnesses, all with first-hand. Here we are in our first hearing. No one has any actual knowledge or evidence. There's nothing new here. So why don't we have some of the fact witnesses here? You've brought them in. They've come in already. What about Devin Archer? Now, Mr. Donalds and the chairman now want to disavow Mr. Archer's testimony that Mr. Biggs entirely relies upon, but they don't want him to come sit here. Why? Well, maybe because he testified that Joe Biden never discussed business with Hunter or other business associates, he got nothing from their businesses, and he never took any official acts related to the businesses. Or maybe the American people might hear that this $3.5 million from Batterina actually had nothing to do with Hunter Biden, which is what Devin Archer testified. Or what about Eric Schwerin?
Yeah, this is pretty frustrating now, look at Flash.
He also performed a number of administrative and bookkeeping tasks for then Vice President Biden and Hunter Biden. He saw President Biden's bank accounts, and he told the committee that he was not aware of any involvement by President Biden in the financial conduct of his relatives' businesses, much less any transactions into or out of then Vice President's bank account related to business conducted by any family member. And the list goes on. We've already talked about Lev Parnas and Rudy Giuliani. The reason is you bring in the fact witnesses and your case goes down the drain. So let's talk about what your allegations are. $15 million to 9 Biden family members from 2014 to 2019. Mr. Dubinsky, was Joe Biden president of the United States from 2014 to 2019?
No, he was not.
And in fact, from 2017 to 2021, he was a private citizen, right?
That's my understanding, correct.
Mr. Gerhardt, am I correct that the framers made very clear that conduct as private citizens are best left for the legal system, not the impeachment process? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, even yesterday, in releasing 700 pages of documents, Chairman Smith admitted that he's not an expert in the timeline, which seems to encapsulate this investigation to a T. Because here we are seeing texts and emails from 2017. We're seeing Department of Justice emails from 2020 when it was the Donald Trump Justice Department. And all we hear all day long, Biden family, Biden family, Biden family. And every time you hear that, you know that it doesn't include Joe Biden. If there were 9 Biden family members who got money from these business transactions, isn't it striking that Joe Biden was not one of them? Pretty remarkable. And what we hear is this is an exceedingly complex chain of transactions. That's what the House Republicans said. Pattern of incredible financial complexity. Ms. McLean showed a chart. It had a investor, it had an investment company that invested money, that received money, and then it went to the investors. Mr. Dubinsky, that's not very complicated, is it?
Well, that's not really the question. The question is, what was going on there? Was there an investment? What's the
I'm just asking about the structure.
Well, that's
because what we have here, and we hear so much about services and all of this, services are legitimate or product. It's an investment company. It's a private equity company that invests capital in other corporations and companies. That is standard practice.
Well, that's an assumption.
Mr. Turley, you said in 2019 that impeachment requires a clear criminal act. Is that right?
No, in fact, in the Trump impeachment, I said repeatedly, you can impeach someone for non-criminal conduct. What I said then, I'm saying now, which is, I strongly encourage you to look at criminal acts.
All right. Well, that testimony is there.
Well,
but no, you can't, because I have 10 seconds left. You have said that lying as a president is not impeachable. You have said that there's an influence peddling campaign, but you will acknowledge, will you not, that in order to have a criminal act of public corruption or bribery, there must be, under McDonnell, an official act in connection to some sort of personal benefit. Isn't that right?
Gentleman's time's expired, but Mr. Turley, please answer the question.
Yeah, I can just point you to my testimony. I talk about quid
Just
pro
answer the
quo.
question.
Yeah, because it's a little more complex.
No, it's not. An official act for a personal benefit.
All right. Gentleman's time's expired. Chair now recognizes Ms. Green from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On July 25th, 2023, Chairman Comer and I sent the Department of Justice a letter requesting information related to victims of Hunter Biden, specifically
God,
women
dude.
he sexually exploited and then claimed as deductions on his taxes through his law firm. But he never paid those taxes. Not surprisingly, the Department of Justice did not respond. After the DOJ's sweetheart Hunter Biden deal fell apart, by the way, led by the special counsel David Weiss, on September 8th, 2023, Chairman Comer and I again sent a letter to the same DOJ officials asking about victims' rights issues related to Hunter Biden's sexual exploitation. DOJ once again failed to respond. Well, yesterday I found out why they don't want to talk with us. In a new email just released, by the way, from October 2020, could you please display the email? The Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office, DOJ, Tax, FBI, and IRS described evidence they have related to Mann Act violations. By the way, the subject of the email says Mann Act. First, the title, Mann Act. Then, it's clear there are charges on the table while the Department of Justice is in hiding from meeting with me. The Department of Justice and IRS email and David Weiss's Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office, the email states there are communications with trafficker number 1 and trafficker number 2, and that Hunter Biden had escorts who traveled across state lines. These women are victims, and the Department of Justice is refusing to protect their rights. Not only that,
I don't think if a prostitute crosses state lines that they are being necessarily trafficked. Oh God. Yeah, Hunter Biden was sleeping with victims of sex trafficking who, he drove them around in a shipping container. Get the fuck out of here. If you had evidence of that, you would present it, and that is not what this is. You're complaining that you don't have evidence to show that he was shipping women around in shipping containers.
that David Weiss, the now special counsel in charge of supposedly investigating Hunter Biden, has been clearly covering up Hunter Biden's crimes since before the 2020 election, which is undoubtedly election interference. David Weiss is complicit and must be removed from the special counsel.
This is silliness.
We also have more information we subpoenaed. Let me give you an even better example based on an interview with one of Hunter Biden's victims with law enforcement.
Yeah, quite interesting that this is a problem with Hunter Biden, but apparently not a problem with Matt Gaetz when he sleeps with underage girls, huh? Apparently not. Allegedly.
It says here that the victim, Hunter Biden's victim, stated that Biden told her that his father was the vice president and asked to Google search his name. Hunter Biden's victim stated she told Biden she was not interested in Google searching his name and just wanted to be paid. Hunter Biden's victim stated that Biden then showed her a picture of his father with President Barack Obama. Don't forget his father was vice president then. Hunter Biden's victim.
Wait, all you are showing is that he slept with a prostitute. That's all you're showing, which I have to point out is also something that has nothing to do with Joe Biden. Amazing stuff here.
Stated after she was shown the aforementioned picture, who was the Vice President of the United States with the President of the United States, Barack Obama, she became afraid. After Hunter Biden's victim left the location, she arrived back at her apartment and told her friend, who she was just with, Hunter Biden's victim stated that her friend told her, "You have no idea who you're dealing with." These women were terrified.
Yeah, because there's a big difference between sleeping with a random finance bro and sleeping with, like, the son of the vice president. There's a big difference. And when you are someone, like, you know, engaging in sex work, that can be scary to be that close to seats of power, because you know what? People like sex workers often, you know, are in a dangerous spot when it comes to people in power. But that's not because Hunter Biden was threatening her. It's just because of the nature of her career and how people react to sex workers. You know, the same way Republicans react to sex workers publicly. Behind the scenes, Republicans love sex workers.
Hunter Biden used his father, the Vice President of the United States, to threaten his victim, who he had just trafficked for sex. And the Department of Justice refuses to...
Again, paying for a prostitute is not sex trafficking. Words mean things, as that one very astute man at the beginning of this pointed out.
To speak to me. Hunter Biden needs to be held accountable for his sexual exploitation of women. And we've shown more evidence. This is what it looks like. This is what Mann Act violations look like.
Mr. Chairman,
I reclaim my time.
I'd like to challenge the use of this exhibit under Clause 6 of Rule 17.
It is sad that my Democrat colleagues pretend to care about women's rights while allowing Hunter Biden to exploit women. This is a shame. But let's talk about...
Chairman, there's a parliamentary challenge before us.
The point of order.
Chairman, point of order.
Who's the point? And we'll stop the clock for you, Ms. Green.
Mr. Chairman, our colleague from Georgia has introduced before pornographic exhibits and displayed things that are really not suitable for children who might be watching. And
bathing suit's not suitable, Mr. Raskin?
Well, I'm saying I would like the member to be instructed to not introduce any pornography today, at least without running it to the chair
bathing suit is not pornography,
Well, we
Mr.
can't
Raskin.
see it from down there, so you didn't make it available to the minority before you started.
I've seen it before. It's on the internet. It's everywhere.
You are submitting a...
Oh, well, if you've seen it everywhere, then it's not pornography. Oh, then I guess we can just show any video off of Pornhub then.
Naked woman's body.
This is a bathing suit.
And it has not been clear before this committee.
Glasses on. Do you wear them or not? It's a
I have
bathing suit.
contacts in. Thank you.
Congratulations.
God, I hate her so much.
All right. Chair, ask Ms. Green to proceed.
Now let's talk about more evidence the Democrats have denied that's turned out to be true. We all know Joe Biden is the big guy. We confirmed that Hunter Biden was lobbying his father. Here's another example that was just released yesterday. This is from a timeline from one of the IRS whistleblowers, in quotes, an email between Vuk Jeremic, a Serbian politician, and Hunter Biden. Did you have a chance to talk with the big man? He's receiving my prime minister on Wednesday. Please let me know if you think that what we discussed back in D.C. can be mentioned in the meeting. My domestic strategy, how I proceed in dealing with my government, very much depends on whether it happens or not. This is a conversation between Hunter Biden and Vuk Jeremic. This is called influence peddling. This is how Hunter Biden was selling his father's political power and influence. And this is a perfect example. This is evidence right here. I'd like to remind everyone that this is the beginning of the impeachment inquiry, where we're casting a wide net and finding every single person, whether it's last administration, the administration before that, and whether it's the current administration, that has covered up the crimes of the Biden family. And we will continue pulling more
We're
evidence
54 seconds
forward.
over, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll let Mr. Goldman go over 30 seconds. So we owe you 20 seconds to Mr. Moskowitz. It's your lucky day. You get 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's your lucky day. What a day we are having here, isn't it? Right? I mean, listen, as a former director of emergency management, I know a disaster when I see one. I mean, by the way, you don't believe me? Just ask Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, your guy, just went on and said, perhaps.
Whose guy is Steve Bannon?
Yeah, well, you know who Steve Bannon is. Perhaps Steve Bannon just went on and said perhaps the Republicans shouldn't have started with a witness. He was talking about Professor Turley, who was going to say right off the bat that there wasn't an impeachable offense. I quote, he says, perhaps we should have put him on the maybe list for one of our witnesses. So your other witness, Ms. O'Connor, gave a complete recitation of the last 9 months, 8 months of these hearings. She went through some of the greatest hits that have come out, right? Everything that has been presented, both in these committees that we've been having, on TV, all of the evidence that you guys have been presenting over the last 8 months, all of that together. And what does Professor Turley say? It says everything we know at this juncture doesn't rise to the level of impeachment. Boy, that is awkward. It's like political impeachment malpractice. But look, let's go back at some of the previous comments that my colleagues have given. So the chairman, and I have a slide, the chairman goes on Hannity, right? You guys all know Sean, you appear with him on Fox News all the time, right? And Hannity asks a softball question, right? This is a total softball. Do you believe that this is now officially the Joe Biden bribery allegation, and do you believe you will be able to prove it? The chairman should have just said yes, but nope, he says hope so, because he doesn't have any evidence. Couldn't say yes, right? Next slide, please. Then we have Senator Grassley. Grassley says what we all know out loud. We aren't interested in whether or not the accusations against Vice President Biden are accurate. Chuck, we know. We know you're not interested in the truth. Next slide, please. And then Donald Trump, he's giving it all away. We know he doesn't. He likes to show his cards. He says, I think had they not done it to me, perhaps you wouldn't have it being done to them. And this is going to happen with indictments, too. So, Donald Trump, the tough guy, right? What is he saying? He's teaching we all go do it back. So, look, we're all appearing now in the world's worst acted TV drama, right? It's been picked up for a second season, the Real House Republicans of Oversight. Perhaps the material's so bad due to the writer's strike. How many Republicans, Freedom Caucus members, part of the Chaos Caucus, have said there's no evidence to impeach Joe Biden? And again, of course, we know it's not about the evidence. Why? Here is a list of all of the articles of impeachment that have been filed by my colleagues, some that are on this committee. When was the first article filed? It was filed in January of 21, 2 weeks after January 6th. So before we had a single hearing, before they went through this myriad of fishing They were filing articles of impeachment. Professor Turley, you said this doesn't rise to the level of impeachment, and you said they shouldn't prejudge. Well, here's a list right here of every single member, many on this committee, prejudging. They're filing articles of impeachment. COVID, Afghanistan, Hunter Biden, and they're all one-upping each other in the Donald Trump Friend Olympics, trying to get invited to the sleepover at Mar-a-Lago. Oh, I filed articles of impeachment against Merrick Garland. No, I filed articles of impeachment against Kamala Harris. Okay, it is ridiculous. But this is what this is about. Let me show you. It's a simple board, right? So all other presidents in the United States, 50% of the impeachments. Donald Trump, the other 50. Donald Trump has half of the impeachments in American history. But you know what? He's got 100% of the indictments. 100% of all indictments. 0 for the other presidents. Listen, let me do it another way. I want to channel my inner Tim Russert. So let me go to the board, right? And I don't have Florida. But Donald Trump, impeachments. Oh, how many impeachments? We got 2 there. How many indictments? We got 4. How many for Biden? 0, 0. Donald Trump is right. He's sick of winning. He's just winning, running away with it. And that's why we're here. We're here because of math. That's what this is about. They can't save Donald Trump. They can't take away the 2 impeachments and the 4 indictments. But they can try to put some numbers on the board for Joe Biden. But the problem is when you sling mud, you got to have mud. And they just don't have anything, Mr. Chairman. So look, we get it. We know why we're here. That's why they say the Biden family, the Bidens, James Biden, Joe Biden's dog, Commander, but not Joe Biden. Never Joe Biden. So when are you going to have the vote on impeachment, Mr. Chairman? What are you scared of? Call the vote. Come on. If you all think there's so much evidence, we're here. Call the vote on impeachment. Impeach him right now. I dare you.
Gentlemen, time's expired. Chair now recognizes Mr. Gosar for 5 minutes.
CEFC of China Energy. Who is Chairman Yi? Chairman Yi and CEFC reportedly had connections to the Chinese military. Though it was in theory a private company,
Paul Gosar, by the way, is a
has layers of
complete
Communist Party
nut
committees,
job.
which are usually staples of state-owned enterprises. This CCP-affiliated entity was closely connected with China's Belt and Road Initiative, and there's evidence Joe Biden was in business with it. Joe Biden was engaged so closely with Chairman Yi and CEFC that he planned to share office space in Washington, D.C. with him. Joe Biden was actually considered a partner. Let's break down the evidence. The email I have on display shows on September 21st, 2017, yes, we'll talk about that in a minute, Hunter Biden emailed the general manager, House of Sweden, a building in Washington, D.C., to request that keys be made available for office mates Joe Biden, Jill Biden, Jim Biden, Gong Wendong, Chairman Yi's CFC emissary. Not only did Joe Biden share office space with the Chinese Communist-affiliated CFC leadership, his son, Hunter Biden, asked that the signage for the venture be listed as, quote, the Biden Foundation Hudson West, CEFC US. In case it isn't clear that Joe Biden wasn't a partner in these business dealings with CCP-affiliated entity with a key to shared office space, the email I now have on display shows that Hunter Biden specifically referenced Joe Biden as his partner in this venture. Hunter even shared the personal phone numbers for Joe Biden, to whom Hunter Biden refers to as his partner, along with Gong Wendong, Chairman Yi's emissary, and Jim Biden. The management was told to call Joe Biden if they chose. CEFC Chairman Yi additionally gifted Hunter Biden a diamond worth $80,000 during their business relationship. Chairman Yi was detained in 2018 by Chinese authorities. It was initially reported by Chinese media that his detention in China was ordered directly by Chinese President Xi Jinping. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent at the end of the record this email dated September 21st, 2017, showing Joe Biden's involvement sharing of office space with the family CCP-linked business partner, Chairman Yi Ying-ming.
Without objection to order.
Now let me ask you a question. Who do you think I'm referring to? Who has a family of high-ranking government officials receiving tons of money, cars, and luxury items from a foreign government? You might have said Senator Menendez, and you would be right. But Hunter Biden also received those same things. Mr. Turley, in your experience, is it concerning that a public official such as Joe Biden is involved with the CEFC, China Energy, a company with ties to CCP, and Chairman Yi, who was later detained by China for fraud?
Well, it's certainly a concern that some of these individuals have been either accused of or has been convicted of fraud, including one by the United States government. The question is whether that conduct extended to the vice president or the president today, and whether that's part of a continuum of conduct.
Mr. Dudinsky, when you see a pattern of problems, particularly in corruption, doesn't that pattern usually continue? It's a kind of cover-up. Do you agree with that statement?
I do. We call it pattern evidence, and that's what we look for when we're doing investigations, to see what's continuing in that regard.
So if you were started prior as a vice president, you would continue through this as a private citizen. You'd see it also as a president. So those would be aspects that you would follow through, right?
Absolutely.
Now for all three of you, real quick. The other side has said over and over again, you've given no information. But isn't it true that we should be looking to you for establishment? I'm not an attorney, neither are a bunch of these folks here. Shouldn't we be utilizing your expertise to go get that information to make sure it's valid? Mr. Turley, would you agree with that?
I agree. My testimony tried to lay out the historical baseline for an inquiry. This is just the beginning of that formal inquiry.
Mr. O'Connor?
My testimony was to aid in understanding what the whistleblowers have brought forward.
Mr. Dudinsky?
And my testimony was centered around conducting an unbiased investigation and getting to the truth.
See, unbelievable. I think this is just so perfectly set up. But we wanted the very basis of this, and we wanted a slow, methodical, make sure it is done appropriately. You know, it just overwhelms me when we start to see the rhetoric that comes out of that side, and especially the show that we just saw. You know, that belongs on Saturday Night Live. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a unanimous consent motion, or request, rather. I would like to enter 6 different instances of the Devin Archer transcript. Where
it's been entered twice, but if you want to enter it again, go ahead.
Yeah, well, there are 6 ones where he said that all they discussed was the weather.
Yeah,
and
look,
never business,
Mr. Coleman,
business.
we'll enter in the whole entire transcript for the 3rd time.
Thank you.
Without objection to order.
Mr. Chairman,
recognizes Ms. Talib from Michigan for 5 minutes.
Before she starts, I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to enter a October 23rd, 2020 Wall Street Journal article that states, text messages and emails provided to the Journal by Mr. Bobulinski don't show either Hunter Biden or James Biden discussing a role for Joe Biden in the venture.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair recognizes Ms. Talib.
Mr. Chairman, just before also, I'd like to enter into the record on behalf of Congressman Crockett all of Donald Trump's indictments, and so I'd like to also enter those into the record.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair now recognizes Ms. Talib.
Thank you so much, Chair Comer, and of course our wonderful ranking member Raskin. It is great to be on this committee, and when I first came in, I looked up on the wall and saw the incredible former chair of our House Oversight Committee, Elijah Cummings, and it reminded me of our first meeting, our first committee hearing here in this chamber. I can tell you it was incredibly powerful. I don't know, Mr. Turley, if you know, do you know what the subject matter of that hearing was?
I don't.
It was around insulin, price gouging of insulin, and the first witness was a mother of twins who had to ration her insulin between the 2 children. It was incredible because at that moment I thought, this is exactly the committee I want to be on, here doing, you know, what is needed for the American people in fighting back against, you know, greed and a number of broken systems and processes that I think, again, leave many of our families behind. But here we are, though, doing the bidding of a twice impeached, indicted former president instead of working for the people of our country. Mr. O'Connor, 47,395. Do you know what that is, Ms. O'Connor?
I don't know what number you're referring to.
That's the number of active duty reserve men and women serving our nation's armed forces in Kentucky who's going to be forced to go without pay because of the shutdown.
And I should know that because?
No, it's because you have nothing to say about any of this because you're not a fact. You don't have any facts. You weren't there. So, Ms. O'Connor, don't take it personally. Ms. O'Connor, don't take it personally that you are here being used for somebody out there being indicted. This is not helping the American people. Mr. Gephardt, what is this here over here? What does this say?
Well, one thing I'm learning in these hearings is I need new glasses. But that's the
hear you.
countdown to the shut.
That's right. What is it? What, a couple days here?
2 days and 8 hours.
So, Mr. Dubinsky, do you know who said the following? We had thousands of members across the country who returned holiday presents because they needed cash, missed a mortgage payment, took out a short-term loan, and ran up their credit card debt because they had no paycheck for the month.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
State your point. And
Uh,
stop the clock for Mr.
Thank
Lee.
you,
State your
Mr.
point.
Chair, I appreciate that.
All government employees are going to get paid at the end of this month, and also the Democrat Party forced
That is not
shutdowns
true.
on the American
That is
economy,
not true.
hurting
Re- re-
businesses,
reclaiming order.
forcing people to lose their jobs, kids behind in school.
It's okay.
That's
Chair
not
now-
a point of order.
Chair
You know
now,
what?
all right.
That's going to be not true on October 1st.
Hold on.
I know,
Chair
Mr. Chair, but
recognizes
we can't
Mr.
allow
Lee.
people to be misleading the American people. We all know. I was here. I was here in 2019 when the shutdown was there for 35 days. Because you know what? You don't know who said this?
I lost track of it.
I know. Doreen
Paladin.
She was a member of the National Treasury Employees Union. She said 150,000 workers in 35 agencies.
Paladin, thank you for the 20 tier 1 subs. My goodness. Thank you so goddamn much. I very, very much appreciate that. And I think, yeah, after Rashida Tlaib finishes up, we're gonna transition to People's Court, because this is, I mean, we've got another hour of this, and frankly, I've been streaming for like 9 to 10 hours, and I'd much prefer some People's Court going on.
She said this is the irresponsible 2018-19 Republican shutdown from the previous administration. Do you know she also went on to say, because this is important, this is what this committee should be used for. She went on to say they stood in line at food banks, pulled their children from childcare, were unable to put gas in their cars and begged creditors for grace. This is not how the United States of America should treat its own employees. That is verbatim from a federal employee that did not get paid at last shutdown. So let's not lie to the American people. Right now, the Department of Agriculture will be forced to stop processing housing loans, which provided over 675 million people and 3,431 families in rural North Carolina. That's all going to stop. The Department of Ag would be forced to stop processing a loan in Wisconsin, about $181 million loans that are impacting rural Wisconsin. Small Business Administration, y'all, would stop processing small business loans, halting over $284 million in funding small businesses in Alabama. That's just one state. The federal government shutdown has real consequences. I would like to submit, Mr. Chair, to the record, FEMA funding would be impacted if the government shuts down. This is in regards to the impact in Florida specifically if the government shuts down, and the impact on the many, many humanitarian aid that has to go to many homeowners that were impacted.
Without objection to order.
In my district, 56,000. Do you know what that is? That's a number of children that will lose their child care spot, the spot to receive child care. State, countrywide, is 3.5 million children impacted. This is how many children, again, our caucus, again, Republicans, are literally just putting aside and saying, no, we're going to do this instead. We're going to go and bring the campaigning, the ugliness, toxicity that our families don't need right now into this chamber instead of doing what we need to do, which is making sure we have a functional government that provides for our families. When it comes to dysfunction, to all our witnesses here, you're now part of it. You came to this committee. They're overachievers when it comes to dysfunction. Why stop at destroying child care across our country? They're devastating public health, education, social safety nets in our country. And Ms. O'Connor, you are part of it now because you came here.
Chair,
Don't say that you're not
ladies,
part.
time's expired. Chair now recognizes Mr. Burchett from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. President Biden has sent over $110 billion of taxpayers' hard-earned money to Ukraine and wants to send even more. Yet his son failed to pay any taxes on the millions of dollars he received from Ukrainian companies. Many folks in East Tennessee can't afford to buy any in their
Penny!
groceries, let alone a home or an automobile. But
Thank
these
you very much
decent
for the
people in America all over the
$25
country still pay their
dono.
taxes. The fact
Is it actually
if
your
last
birthday?
name is Biden, you don't have to play by the same rules.
Okay. Rashida Tlaib is done. We're done. Boom. We did it. We made it through. We made it through. I need to use the bathroom really, really badly. And when I come back, chat, we're gonna do some People's Court. Alright? So hold on to your butts. Hello, chat. I have returned. Hey, Rivers, River Shards. Hello, Metal Kitty Mom. Caramels sound great. It's a Jack. That was your Italophobia for the stream. Oh, Banui, I'm sorry the wine is gone. Hey, Enbiata. You been jamming? Aw, yeah. Hey, Abyssal Liz. Let's see you got those shiny new she-they pronouns on the site. All right, folks. We're gonna be switching gears. That's how you shift gears in a car. I've seen a lot of Fast and Furious. We're gonna be switching gears. We're going to be doing some People's Court. I'm gonna rename the stream. Now, chat, every 5 subs over on riverboat.gg is 1 episode of People's Court. Okay? Sorry that I fell asleep on stream. It's okay. We were having a chill stream day. And I actually got a lot done. So thank you for keeping me company. Hiccup. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with People's Court, the concept is pretty simple. The show The People's Court uploads court cases to their YouTube channel. We simply watch the court cases and we talk about them, have a little fun, make our little jokey jokes, and we also gamble channel points, which you get for free just by watching the Twitch channel. Just for funsies. You don't get anything for channel points, really, but you can use them to, like, make me say things or whatever. We'll be doing that. However, the issue is, because YouTube is very stringent with DMCA and copyright, we have to do it over on Twitch. So if you are over on the YouTube channel right now, twitch.tv/riverboatjack, or you can come on over to riverboat.gg. Either of those sites will get you a front row seat to what we're watching. Now, there will be ads over on Twitch, but we won't be watching any People's Court during the ads. You won't miss a thing. So we're gonna have to switch over to Twitch. Sorry to everyone on the riverboat.gg site and on YouTube. But I love you all. And if you can't follow over to riverboat.gg or twitch.tv, I'm very sorry. But People's Court only works on Twitch. It's a jump to the left to avoid copyright. True. Riverboat.gg is the OP option, though. True. True. Now, chat, you guys have 9 episodes of People's Court already lined up, provided to you by the lovely Penny and handsome Paladin Lost and very knifey duck programmer Paul Kairyu, as well as fun folks like Marshall Ghetto, Lizzie Nepon, wayward historian, Scoia'taolo. You already got a whole slew of them. So, let's go, chat. We're gonna switch gears. Get ready, it's happening. If you can't follow us, YouTube, see you tomorrow. Brace for impact! Spectral Pyre, thank you for subscribing. What strange land. Bye, YouTube.